Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Troutdale Budget Committee for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. If we can have roll call, please.
Yes. Mayor Lauer. Councilor Ritma.
Here.
Councilor Caswell. Councilor One.
There he is.
Councilor White.
Here.
Councilor Wittrin.
Present.
Councilor Glantz.
Here.
Kenny Staffenson.
Here.
Jean Bent.
Here.
Heidi Timmerman. Here. Chris Barney.
Here.
Paul Wilcox.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Rich Allen. And Kevin Minkoff.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and Mr. Mueller.
All righty, quick review of what's coming up for the evening. Got a regulatory requirement to check off. We'll do public comment here in a moment, then we'll dive into continuing the department reviews. Traditionally, then we usually take a break, go over and do the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, then come back and finish up with the general fund recap. So that's sort of the general plan. So to deal with our regulatory requirements and make sure that we comply with the local budget law, et cetera. So nightly business-like manner, 5 minutes per speaker, limited to the proposed budget. Comments about other matters, other city issues aren't for this purpose. So after the typical 3 parts, Zoom, anybody present, and any written comments, and then after that, the chair can close the public comment period.
Okay. Okay,
Chair Jeffrey's on now.
all right, great. If there aren't any, we may take comment later. Okay, at this time, I would like to open the public comment period. And this is a public meeting on the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025, and any citizen may speak to an item relative to the budget. Ms. Scraw, did you receive any? Nothing. Anyone online wishing to speak to the budget this evening? All right, seeing none. Anyone in chambers wishing to speak to the budget committee this evening? All right, it's time we'll close the public comment period.
Okay, so budget committee duties, as we reviewed the other night, major categories: receive the budget document, the budget message, hear and consider public comment. We had opportunities for that Monday night as well as just a moment ago, so we fulfilled those tasks that are required for. Discuss, revise the budget as needed, and approve the budget and property taxes are the final 2 duties of the budget committee for this cycle. So we'll charge forward toward those. So we'll move into departmental reviews. So community development department has several different divisions and parts. So tourism and economic development, planning. It shares the public safety and community livability along with the police services and the code specialties fund, which is where we'll start off, page 112 in your books. So it handles all of our building safety inspection activities, building permits, plan reviews, inspections. We have the disciplines, building, mechanical, plumbing, electrical. As with all the other departments, the wage and benefit are pending the result of the resolution of our ASME negotiations. We have the IGA with Gresham to supplement the contract services. The revenue timing is challenging, given the long cycle of development and when permits are pulled and when inspections are done and when things get completed. But otherwise, it's moving forward, routine and ordinary. Heather's provided us these great charts for the last couple of years showing the variety and quantities of the different permits. And as you can see, there's been a lot of volume. Continues to be. These are also in your book. Where the heck did they go? They're not in the book. How about that? Yeah, had to use a different printer this year, and so I don't know whether that's my goof or theirs, but anyway, well. New housing units. Fox Ridge, of course, there, the big contributor in the middle, but continuing to add housing units. And then permit dollar value and so forth, the ongoing construction. And then sort of an exciting project many of you have heard about, and certainly the folks involved in the Planning Commission on the coming cycle here, and that last bar is contributing toward the BESS system. I think Ray has briefed the council on it briefly as well, but the battery energy storage system. It's a snapshot of it. I mean, it doesn't exist in our environment yet, but that's an example. That's a shot of one that's not here, but in a facility that they constructed in Texas. So you can sort of see those same modules that you saw on the prior page. And that's sort of the plan, and the little modules all lined up there. As it was described to me, they're cabinets with pizza box sized batteries in a rack, just stacks and stacks and stacks of them. And that's the location out in the trip sites, the big white building there at the bottom, that's the Cubes that was completed a couple of years ago, and then off to the right off the screen would be where FedEx is and so forth to orient yourself, but that's where it's located to come in. And Heather and her team have been working through with that. It's been an interesting project. It's gotten the state fire marshal involved because it's a new kind of project to do this, capture the energy, store it, and then release it into the grid later in the evening when there's demand. And so this is the guinea pig project, and they're using the standards that you're helping to establish here for other projects like this that they're doing in the state. So it's gotten a lot of attention there at the state level. Anyway, other than that, routine and ordinary going forward in the code specialties funds. Any questions there? I guess I should stop in case there's some out there. Okay, don't see any. Tourism and Economic Development Division, flip back a few pages to page 106. So, Promote Tourism and Travel Oregon Grant, just a month or so ago, the council got a report on the first Travel Oregon grant that Marley had worked with on the destination marketing program, and brought that information to the council. The group also focuses on the town center plan implementation, coordination of the economic development and promotion activities, city event promotion, the visitor center at the depot, marketing of the Confluence site. Same pending on the wages. Depot is the operates the visitor center out of the depot. Expanded community events is planned for in this coming summer cycle. And then that most recent Travel Oregon grant that the council just approved 3 meetings ago anyway, on the Sandy River recreation areas and Troutdale attraction shuttle feasibility and parking management study. Mouthful, of course, it just rolls off the tongue. Anyway, any questions on the Tourism and Economic Development Division?
Mr. Bent?
On page 109, professional services, what's the travel grant implementation, 100,000? What is that?
Well, I think, didn't we, like detail had the part of that in that answer that we sent out Monday, but that was the grant that I just read the title of. That was the implementation of that grant. In order to do the grant, even though we're getting funding for it, we have to put the expenditure in the budget in order to perform the grant.
Okay.
So that's where we're gonna spend the grant money that comes in cost over there.
So in this case, the carriage came before the horse.
I'm sorry?
The carriage came before the horse.
It's,
That's all right. I got it.
they're in the same, well, it's like most grants. It's reimbursement based, so you tend to, you get the grant approved, then you go forward with the process and you do periodic reports. You know, depends on the grant program, how frequently they do reimbursement and so forth. So, you know, we're gonna be spending money over the course of this current fiscal year even, and into next fiscal year for the budget. And then we do reimbursement requests to Travel Oregon, and they reimburse us for the qualified expenditures for implementing the grant program that was all part of the IGA that council approved.
Thank you.
Hopefully I didn't promise Erica to do something there that I wasn't supposed to, so, okay, she's on board with it, so we're good. All right, so planning, page 99, busy with development volume, several state mandates, which of course the planning commission is familiar with, continuing to percolate their way through that we have to address for implementation, code compliance. Grant funding specialist is held in that unit and continues to do great work for us, as Ray had talked about on Monday night during his comments. So I'll stop again for any questions on planning, but it's no big changes. It's move forward kind of as is. Okay. Public safety and community livability, page 69. This is, as I mentioned before, this is where the code enforcement, the code compliance officer is housed. That budget goes back, you know, long term, has been housed in that same police operation, so we keep it there for comparability. Minimal changes. This is the pickup truck that Ray had talked about on Monday in answer to one of the questions. Otherwise, the code enforcement or code compliance part of the operation is ordinary as usual. It's a smaller portion of the dollars, of course. The big dollars are the police contract and community resource deputy and the Bureau of Emergency Services costs. We'll get to police here in a few minutes, but any questions there?
Mr. Bent?
Say, Ray, looking on that, page 71, it looks like there's been a steady reduction in service calls, which sounds to me like a good thing.
I think the response is yes.
Yes, I'm looking at it. And
I was giving them a little more time.
Yeah, and those can be deceptive sometimes because it could be for different reasons. They had a lot of, in 2023, they were struggling with filling all their roles, and so they didn't have enough 911 operators. They're getting their numbers back up. Eric's on the user board, so I'd have to look back to the quarterly reports that we get to figure out if was there anything unique going on that kind of reduced those calls. They're also, aren't they using 311 more?
That's the attempt, yeah.
Right, to kind of divert some of those calls to 311.
or they don't answer.
Or they don't, you're right, that's happened before too.
Okay. Come on. The executive department's made up of several different divisions. Starts on page 42. So just a quick overview. This is the sort of the relative shares of the costs, the different divisions within the general fund. Of course, the two largest ones there make up 52%, 53% of all the expenditures are the public safety components, the police operations and the fire protection services. The executive division are the various ones that are circled in green. And the winner for the least expensive one, once again, that wins this year is the city council. They're out here on the very edge at the 0.2 of, or almost 0.3% of the expenditures. So they're on page 44, status quo, ordinary, there's no major changes or initiatives, routine operations, so I'm not sure if there would be any questions, but I will pause. Okay. Judicial, the municipal court function, the municipal court judge, court appointed attorneys, the court clerk, no staffing changes, pending wage changes. You know, we have the volume increase, these were from the IGAs, we're doing the court services for Wood Village and Fairview. You know, it's ongoing from this year to next year, proposed to be status quo ordinary operations. Okay. Legal, city attorney's office, the city contract prosecutor, half-time assistant, no staffing changes, minimal other changes, again, another routine, ongoing operations. Okay. And then page 51, general government. This one has no staff. This is where we have the kind of the citywide stuff, League of Oregon Cities memberships, Greater Portland, RDPO. The notable difference or item this year addition is the $150,000 line item that was added in for the fire services study. That hasn't yet kicked off, but that's having funding available to be able to support the direction where PSWAG has been headed toward exploring the options. So we're putting the money in there. But other than that, the rest of it is generally the ongoing routine. Oops, get myself on the wrong page here. Okay. Administration, so expenditure staff, as a city manager, city recorder, human resource functions. This is where one of the ads for the FTEs in the current year is. And in terms of trying to address some of the questions about the need for it and so forth, I'm going to breeze through a bunch of this because I don't want to make your eyes cross over, but we have an ever-increasing employment labor law regulatory burden that's coming both from the state and from federal mandates. These result in additional regulatory tracking documentation requirements, notice and disclosure requirements, documentation, updates and revisions to the employee handbook, fixing and aligning the changes that come through on those mandates with the collective bargaining agreement, and many times there's an impact on job descriptions. Human resources, just overview the recruiting, the background checks as part of the recruitment, advertisement, selection to fill vacancies, orientation for city policies, employee handbook, collective bargaining agreement. Certainly the benefits administration is a big chunk of it for medical care, dental care, all the voluntary benefits, the 457 plan, the long-term disability plans, et cetera. Presently, we have 71 employees on payroll. Now, that doesn't equate to FTEs because if you have a part-time employee, they still are getting a paycheck, but they're not a full FTE, so didn't want you to be thrown by that. But all of that requires processing, review of timesheets, reconciliation. So the payroll review and the PAFs, as we refer to them, for merit increases, for promotions, as operators move from operator 1 to 2 to 3 through promotions and passing certifications, the employee training schedule and documentation for both the safety policies and kind of the subject matter expertise, administration of the commercial driver's license program, and the DMV monitoring, which we have to do as part of our insurance arrangement with CIS for all of our authorized drivers. Training of supervisors for all the various HR functions, because their normal focus is on operations, not doing HR stuff. Advising management, employee relations, union grievances, exit interviews, surveys for wages and benefits, both for external parties, collective bargaining team agreement negotiations, which is something we're in the thick of right now. Internal investigations, which regrettably we have to do, and they chew up a lot of time. Have some of that. The employment, unemployment insurance, the performance management and discipline procedures, and we have to ensure that we're complying with all the due process requirements and the requirements of the collective bargaining agreement. Safety committee and the OSHA compliance and the workers' compensation compliance. OFLA and FEMLA notices, eligibility and designation, and paperwork tracking has exploded with all of the changes related to paid leave Oregon and the additional provisions that the both federal and state have moved under that umbrella. Paid leave Oregon, we mentioned there, that's the new tax that was placed on all employers in Oregon, and that requires administration by the employers. There's an employee portion and an employer portion. It's a new line item in each of the divisions where there's employees, employee recognition event, et cetera. So that was just a quick overview of all the things that we're expecting HR to stay on top of, and the challenges with the size, we can't accomplish it. This is just the last few years of the additions from the state that have had HR impacts. Some of them were smaller impacts, some of them have bigger impacts. All of them affect all the employees. Some of them may not be applicable to all the employees, but many of them are, requiring updates to the handbook and to the policies and training requirements. Had to change job description requirements related to limitations on driver's license as being a condition of employment. We don't want to get into a scenario where we hire somebody for a job and they don't have a requirement to be able to drive the city truck. And it makes it kind of tough for us to pay them to do the job they can't do. Again, more regulatory burden changes from the state. This is the last 3 years or so cycle of that come out of the Oregon legislature, everything from the heat and the wildfire smoke regulations from the Oregon OSHA, wage and hour changes, the expanded pregnancy protections, sexual orientation and disability discrimination requirements. On the federal side, similar on the pregnancy protections, Secure Act related to impact the 457 plan, administration, sexual harassment or assault in the workplace protections. American Rescue Plan Act, a lot of the profile was on all the money that was passed out, but there was a lot of sick leave protections and expansions that came through that, some of which expired, some of which was extended, some of which was modified. So anyway, all of that is to say, that's why we had the need, and we have been, regrettably, I don't want to be specific because it creates sort of liability, but there are a number of areas where we have just fallen behind to where we're not in compliance. And we are hopeful that we can get ourselves back into compliance before we get audited or we get a surprise inspection, because otherwise we have some vulnerabilities. So anyway, any questions on administration?
Mr. Wilcox?
I'm not exactly sure you actually covered this page 51. There's an item, technical department expense.
Page 51, back to general government. Yeah, if you turn the page to page 52, right there in the middle of the page, where you see it says special department expense 8211. That's the listing that makes that up, and the big increase from year to year is that 150,000 that I mentioned for the addition of the fire study.
Okay, on the third, please.
Okay. Recreation program, and I believe Molly's here this evening, so good. Have the addition, halftime FTE addition, expanded community events for movies in the park. Let me see if this will work. No. It doesn't want to work. There we go. So let me see if get you the microphone so people on Zoom will be able to hear you. Because we can hear you in the room, of course, but the folks on Zoom sometimes can't hear. So if you click the forward arrow, that should pop you through the slides.
Hello, everyone. Hear me okay? Great.
There we go.
Okay, just this run through a few different slides of some of the things going on in the city. Right now, this is our dance program for kids. We've got kids yoga as well, ages 2 to 9. That's down at the Sam Cox building. This is one of our really valuable programs, our yoga program. Some are seated, some are standing, long-time instructor, and just lots of people that have been with us for years. It's a great community program. Play Park, this is super popular. This is for birth to 4 with their caregivers. So incredibly, since COVID especially, bringing this program back, everyone is just starved for community. It's wonderful to see everyone come out and enjoy this program. And we want to run it a lot more. This is one of our community hikes, and this has been really fun. Another great program that we've put out there. Different people just coming and join us for a free walk to learn a little bit more about our area. Again, love to do more of these. This is one of our partnerships with Oregon State University, the Master Gardener program. They bring a qualified instructor out for free, and we provide the space and do the registration. It's a free program. So really fun, well attended. This is a great weekend program. One of our new camps this summer is called Wilderness Wonder Camp, and so they're going to be learning some different skills out in the area. It's going to be down at Glen Otto Park. We're super excited for this new camp, and it's in-house that we're running ourselves versus a contracted camp. Movies in the Park. This has just been a golden program. Last summer was incredible. Our Mario's Brother movie brought in, I think, 600 people. We had Princess Peach there as a character. We had a portable rock wall. The library was there, vendors. It was magical. And it was literally the day after the heat came down and the day before the smoke came in. It was just a miracle event, just stunning. Well loved. People really enjoy those. So again, we had 2 last summer. They're double features with the video wall, which has been great. And I'm requesting a 3rd night. It's just such a well-loved event. This is a great event as well in the wintertime, a merry movie night. We do it inside at Reynolds High School. Very fun, a little bit of a different feel to it with Santa there and kids' crafts and activities, and it's all inside. Warm and cozy with some free refreshments. These are all free events, the movies in this one. And then here we are at First Friday. We have a little Trout Kids Zone for free activities for kids. This has been great as well. This is another event we do in the summer called Arts and Craft Time. Free event for everyone to come out and just do a variety of great crafts. They grab and take and create, and we have a lot of different examples. This is also a free event. And one more event in the winter. I started this a couple years ago. It's called Make a Gift. So community members can come in. It's designed more specifically for kids, but anyone can come and they'll make a gift for a grandparent or a loved one, and they can wrap it and have it ready to go for the holidays. It was really popular surprisingly, excitingly popular and expanded this year, so really fun to offer. Another great picture of movies in the park. This was actually in the old location, which you can see how crowded it is. We've hence moved it into the ball field right next to this, so that we can expand the amount of seating, which really filled up, like I said, last summer. So just really fun, exciting, lots going on. Would love to do more and would love to have some help to do more. And also just in general have backup for me in case I can't do something. I'd have someone trained up who could run things in my place just for whatever reason. So I think we're ready to grow. The city's loving their community activities, and it'd be fun to do more and keep serving our residents here in Troutdale. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Okay, so questions for Molly?
Let's see, any? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor White.
Are we still having someone set up the equipment for the movies in the park?
Yes, we work with Tone Proper, and they do all the equipment.
That would be Councilor Moon.
Correct.
Would it make sense to maybe think about purchasing our own equipment, or what do you think on that subject?
I'd have to do some research on that. It's a rather extensive setup with all the different panels and everything else, so definitely would want to work with a company to do that. Very, very specific.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
It is.
We can't pull.
But it's wonderful.
Yeah, and we're expanding, again, that's in the budget, just to expand the amount of panels we use, because in the ball field, it's just a bigger area, so we need a bigger screen overall. So we're building on that so that people get a better viewing as well.
I think that one's my grandkids' personal favorite as well. It's a good program.
Thank you.
So expanded screen and expanded nights,
Exactly.
or days, or?
Yes, yeah, it'll be 3 nights instead of 2, but it'll be 6 movies overall instead of 4 with the double features.
Molly, I had a question. What percentage of your participants are from out of Troutdale, maybe?
That's a great question. I haven't run the numbers real recently, but I would say in general, maybe 1/3 are outside and about 2/3 are inside.
What's the cost to the individuals that are outside of Troutdale?
It's 20% higher, unless it's a drop-in program. For example, Play Park is $2 per child, and it's just a drop-in program, so I don't charge an extra on that. But anything that's a registration program, we charge 20% higher for the non-residents.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Molly. There, hopefully it won't create a problem. Okay, where are we? There we go. Okay, finance, going from the exciting to the boring. That was quite the transition. I'm not quite sure I didn't really have that planned. Yeah, they're not particularly colorful to see on the screen with this, so, yeah, no staffing changes. Do have some retirements on the horizon that we're gonna be planning for and doing some cross-training and transitioning on over the coming fiscal year. Some increased audit costs, which I've warned the council about each time in January when we bring the audit for approval. Otherwise, it's the ordinary routine, no particular changes to finance. Okay. Don't have hundreds of questions on finance, can't imagine. IT services, wide range of support activities, licensing, security cameras, SCADA systems, citywide networking, phone support. No staffing changes yet. We're in the process of looking at how are we going to be able to deal with all of the demands, because our current IT specialist is overtaxed and we're going to have to get some additional support We've done a lot along the way on contracted services, but we're getting to where we're gonna need to supplement him internally, so we're gonna be working on that over the course of this year, and you're likely to see that a year from now. Otherwise, we're continuing with the cyber network hardening project that we started a couple of years ago. We're moving slowly and deliberately because, of course, we need to be sure that as we make changes to the network, that we're continuing to be able to function every day and keep people working. And then David in particular and his team have been getting increasing demands from DHS, Homeland Security, on security, cybersecurity related to the water infrastructure. And so it's another area where we're having to beef up the IT support and try and be able to comply with that, those increased requirements. Otherwise, it's routine and ordinary process. In fact, he and I talked late this afternoon, and he and one of the contract vendors are doing some server transitions this evening while we're in your meeting to do some of the project migration that we have, so.
And also today, Travis, we got a notice, a water system in Texas had been hit by a Russian bot or something, and so we get those alerts from the federal agencies all the time, and it's something that's hits, and Chinese do the same thing, so trying to make sure the water is not inhibited by those.
Okay. Fire contract, page 81, 10th and final year of the current IGA, $68,160. It's a very odd increase this year. It's the minimum, and it's because of the very screwball formula that is part of that IGA with Gresham and its multi-year look back and divided by this, plus COLA from the union, and the square root of the date of the last blue moon seems to be all the factors in it, but it calculated out, and that's what they gave us as the billing increase for the coming year. We're not complaining. It just was a little unexpected on the positive side. So, as I highlighted before, the fire contract is the second individual component there on the bar chart, the 15.8 of the overall expenditures. And then fire contract, page 80, that's just one of the graphs based on the calculation year after year. Police operations, page 67. This goes back to what I had mentioned before. Part of this is where the code compliance officer is as part of community development, but it's been housed here for years. But the major components of it, of course, are the community resource deputy contract, the contracted law enforcement services with MCSO, and then the Bureau of Emergency Services contract costs. This is the 10th and final year of this contract, $120,000 increase. BOEC costs are estimated to go up $124,000. That's still a fuzzy number because it's a bureau of the city of Portland is what BOEC is, and so they're still working their way through their city budget process, and they're in a bit more turmoil than they normally are because they're in the midst of changing from their current number of electeds to this new structure, and as part of that, they've been reorganizing the org chart and the administrative structures and all of that, so it's created a bit more confusion there, but that's the same chart I've been showing year after year as it continues to progress. And then this is just, the snapshot, the revenue side. So property taxes is 49% of the various revenue sources that come into the general fund. But as I mentioned before, fire and police are about 53%. So all of the property taxes versus the fire and the police costs, there's a little bit of a gap. So with that, I'll stop for a moment because I went through both fire and police, and there's usually comments.
Mr. Wilcox?
Eric, page 61, other accounts. How do you account there for multifamily units?
I believe it is 1.
So you got
It's accounts, not dwelling units or gallons or any other measure.
So you could have 200 people at home meeting.
Yep, easily.
That kind of throws off the per capita.
It's the data I have to work with, and it's the data we've been presenting for since before I got here.
Mr. White?
Under police, so Ray has been talking about possibly getting security. Is that going to be an issue with budget somewhere? Some of our problems we're having in some of the parks.
Not for next budget year, we're not. But we are looking to increase that for the fall. I'm meeting with the sheriff on April 30th to talk about a couple increases in our FTE for law enforcement. And then since we already have a couple spots in the budget, 2.5 FTE, I just don't like asking for more. We do have a new parks person that does help with that, having an extra person. But yeah, that's something we've talked about before because they are cheaper, so.
Mr. Barney?
This is more of a general question because it's not specifically about this section, because I'm sure you'll see it in other ones too. But what I'm wondering is, what does it mean when there's a line item, but there's just dashes next to it instead of some figure of money?
The dashes would be what Excel is formatting zeros as. All right. So public safety, building operations, essentially this facility that we're in right now, the lease for the building, the MCSO pays 72.5 of the utilities based on the lease agreement. That money comes in one section. This is the division where we support the maintenance and support of this facility, this room, and of course the rest of the facility. Utilities are reconciled once a year after, usually in September, after we get all of them in. They are billed monthly based on a prior year's estimate. It varies from year to year depending on how hot is it, how many above 90-degree days do we have. That's going to impact what the electric usage is. Or in the wintertime, if we had a particularly long cold snap. But if we have typically moderate seasons, then the amount budgeted doesn't vary all that much, and there's not a big adjustment as part of the reconciliation. Page 111 is sort of the leftover, all of the pieces aren't departmentally based, they're transfers, is where the contingency is. This is where the money that we transfer from the MCSO rent to the general obligation bond comes out. This is where we transfer from the general fund for the payments for the Business Oregon 150 line and then or loan, and then also where we pay out for the intergovernmental loan from the Parks Improvement Fund to the general fund. We have two of them now. One is the one for the depot. This coming budget will be the final year of that loan schedule, and then it's also the first year of the $1.5 million loan we just did to the Urban Renewal Agency for the matching money for the trail construction. And so that's where that page is where all of that comes out.
Councilor Woodruff?
Yeah, I would like to make kind of as we're talking about fire, police, and then the public safety building, at least an overall arching comment of, we're looking at our 24-25 budget, and we know contracts are gonna end for fire, police, and a new contract for the building. And I wanna, I guess, as I could see all the numbers and look at where we're at on our fiscal year that's being proposed, but are we leaving ourselves in the best position possible to end 24, 25, if we know that we're going into 25, 26 with a huge headwind in front of us on expenses, on fire and police, and we don't know where the building's ended up, the contract there. So I guess as we get into debate time and we're gonna take a look at this, I guess I'm looking for more reassurance from staff that we are ending our fiscal 24 to 25 in the best position possible to start 25, 26 as we look ahead with new fire, new police contracts, new building, whatever that's gonna look like. So.
Okay. General obligation, I'm sorry. Okay, general obligation debt, page 250. Come on, oops, nothing there. Okay, this is where we collect the funds, the separate levy that you approve as part of the budget process. That's collected, that goes into the separate segregated fund. It's used to pay the bonds on this building that was 12 years ago. And no other charges or costs are allowed under the budget law to be charged against general obligation bond debt levies. Page 250 is the fund, and then the sort of the schedule of the payments is all the way at the back, like the second or third page from the back, page 264. And then this is the, click the page here, so, yeah. 541,000, 175,000 of the lease proceeds for this building get transferred into this fund to help lower the amount that's assessed to the property owners to provide for that annual payment. And as it says there, I should have just clicked and read, page 264 shows the detailed schedule. That's the chart that's also back there, page 263, and just shows the history over time. The large drop was when we got to the 20th year of the water pollution control facility bonds, and were paid off, and so that gray bar represented those. That was paid off. So we're now just have the permanent rate, the 376 at the bottom, and then the incremental rate for the police facility bonds. The full faith and credit debt service is page 254. As I mentioned on Monday night, this is the $5 million obligations that the city took out. It's paid off in December, so there's no further payments on that. However, there's still money being collected and paid out of the full faith and credit debt service fund for the $1.5 million that the city loan that the city took from the Oregon Brownfields Redevelopment Fund. 7 years remaining on that. It's about $203,000 a year in payments. And like I say, it's paid out of this fund. The detailed schedule on that is all the way at the back at page 266. So, questions?
Mr. Wilcox.
Couple on this building in particular, is there a fee or outside groups when they come in and use this particular building? No, not
Not that I am aware of, but I don't manage the event permit process, so I may be speaking out of turn. I won't be charged anyone for renting and making use of this room.
Okay, and my other question is, this was actually one of my written questions, so I didn't get answered. On page 15, levy amount shows 15 cents, and on page 250, it shows 17 cents.
Probably another one of my typos.
And I think I was told the full rate without the 175, 75,000 credit for 21. Does that sound right?
That's about right, yeah, 20 and change, so rounding it up to 21, yeah. And it is very much an estimate, so that, the other part that I would urge you, because it's based on a fixed amount that we tell the assessor we need to collect, and then they spread that across the assessed value. Well, my calculation is based on my estimate of what the assessed value is. So if the assessor has a bigger assessed value, which I'm expecting he's going to, because I've been, as I typically am, cautious on estimating the assessed value growth, then there's more assessed value to spread that same debt amount that we're collecting over. So that causes the rate to tick down per thousand.
Mr. Penn?
On the, this building, the debt service on this building on page 253, I noticed that the principal was substantially more, like 60,000 plus more than the previous three.
Two pieces involved there. One, we went through the refunding exercise at the 10th year, and so it changed the schedule of principal and interest as part of the refunding exercise, up to the principal amounts being paid, and lowered the overall interest cost by about 800,000 over the remaining 10 years. Second part of it is it's going to be about a $20,000 budget adjustment that the council will see at the last meeting in June of this year, because I picked the wrong number a year ago when I put it in the budget. So I'm paying what we owe, but I asked for the wrong amount.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councilor Ripa?
I was interested in Councilor Wittrin's question, comment about the police and fire contract coming to an end, and was awaiting some sort of comment about it. But let me just ask, is this year's budget that we're working on, the increase in the, just take the fire contract, which we have a fixed amount, 68 something, that carries us through till
Contract
June
expiration
30th of
next year.
2025. At that point, and I understand, we're kind of waiting to see what Gresham does on their safety levy that they've been unable to pass. And so we don't know what else to do, but there's nothing in this budget that has to do with a possible rate increase in the fire contract.
Only
And it
very-
would be inappropriate, maybe, I don't know, I just wondered.
Yeah,
I was waiting for an answer on that.
Only indirectly, in that we put the 150,000 in to do the fire services study. That's to look at the alternatives. It's very indirect to what you're getting at. It's not related to. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason I didn't respond earlier is Councilor Wittrin prefaced it by saying, later when we have the discussion, I want to talk about these things. So I took that as a cue to say,
Fair enough. So, what we're budgeting this year covers the increase that we're anticipating, both the police and fire,
yes,
without any
without knowing what the new
anticipation
contract
for
will be.
future.
Yeah, my overall concern was just, are we setting ourselves up for the best finish, for the best start of the new contract?
Fair question. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. Well, we are at the stage where we would typically take a break and then come back into the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meeting. Presumably go through that, at least in past practice, it's been fairly straightforward. We would approve that budget and then it would be taken care of and we'd be done with that obligation for the evening. And then we'd come back to this meeting, dive into the general fund forecast, and then get to the discussion period. If that's acceptable, if nobody wants to take a break, we can move immediately forward, but I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chair.
You guys want to take a 10-minute break?
I would say we could maybe take a break after the urban
After
renewal.
urban renewal.
Okay,
And then take a 10-minute break and then dive in back into the budget.
we shall do that then. Let me just bring up the, find that. So just for the record, Mr. Chair, if you can declare us in recess for this meeting.
Yes, at this time, the City of Troutdale Budget Committee will be in recess. And at this time, we'll call to order the Budget Committee for the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Troutdale.
Okay, thank you. Chair Lauer.
Here.
Director Whitman.
Here.
Director Caswell. Director One.
Present.
Director White. Director Wittrin.
Present.
Director Glantz.
Present.
Tammy Stephenson.
Present.
Jean Bent.
Here.
Heidi Timberman. Here. Chris Barney. Paul Wilcox.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Rich Allen. And Kevin Minkoff.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, we have our regulatory requirement for this separate agency for its budget for tonight. So same public comment opportunity, 5 minutes per speaker relative to the urban renewal budget, not a Q&A session, issues not in order at this meeting. So with that, the same 3 parts, and then you would close the public comment period. So I will leave it to you to open it.
Okay, good evening. At this time, we'd like to open the comment period for the budget for the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Troutdale. It's the budget for fiscal year 2024, 2025, and any citizen may speak to an item relative to the budget. And Sarah, do we receive any comments for this budget? No. Okay, anyone online wishing to speak to the budget this evening? Anyone in chambers wishing to speak to the budget this evening? Okay, we'll close the comment period for the budget for the Urban Renewal Agency.
Okay, so this is my placeholder, but I don't have any, so we'll click through that. So quick review, the proposed budget for the Urban Renewal Agency for fiscal year 24-25. Urban Renewal Agency is composed of the 2 funds, the Riverfront Development Fund, which is essentially the general fund, and the Debt Service Fund. The Riverfront Renewal Fund has $1.6 million in cash, has a $1.7 million TIF-back loan outstanding, a $5 million non-TIF loan outstanding, and the $1.5 million Business Oregon loan outstanding. The Debt Service Fund has a $190,000 in cash and has the obligation for the TIF-backed debt of $1.7 million. The requirements for the proposed budget, $7,040,000 in the Riverfront Development Fund and $253,000 in the Debt Service Fund. Whoops. So with that, are there any questions from the committee regarding the proposed budget for the Urban Renewal Agency for fiscal year 24-25?
Okay, Mr. Barney.
This is just more of a clarification, because I'm still learning a lot of the terminology. So what does TIF mean?
Tax increment financing.
Okay.
Mr. Wilcox.
Page 17. $500,000 project for 57th Way.
That be the yellow brick road?
Yeah. Put it back here, that's where I was looking for I've got to find my little budget book, I'm sorry. That, I believe, is the project that Ray and Travis set up with Nick to start the outline planning for the improvement of the access around the mall to the site. So Ray can probably explain it better than I can.
Yes, this goes back to the URA development in that the mall did not cooperate, as you recall, Monday night to talk to us about another alternate access. And so we currently have a right-of-way As you enter the mall, that's the city right of way, and then as you go to the left in front of Starbucks and Coach, we have a 40-foot right of way all the way along that part of the mall, and then it hits the north side of the mall, then goes around and hits the URA. Since we have been very firmly told, don't even talk to us anymore about another alternative entry, since we know the development is coming in the next couple of years, we figure it's time to start planning for our roadway. If that's what they told us that we have to do, then we're gonna have to use our right of way. So we need to plan for that to be ready for the development on the property. Because currently, it's just kind of a narrow road, it doesn't take advantage of it. It actually goes, when we use our full right of way, it'll go all the way to about, it'll take away all the parking in from the Starbucks and Coach. It'll go up to within about a foot of the curb right now. So we just have to get ready for it. That's the only access we have. So, does that make sense?
I had a question, I guess, regarding timing. With that I-84 East ramp having to be rebuilt. Are we planning on doing this after that work's done? I would hope.
Travis, what do you know about the I-84 ramp replacement schedule?
I don't know the schedule exactly, but I did have a conversation with the manager at the City Drainage Improvement Company the other day, or talking about that we needed to coordinate on those projects, because the rebuilding of the ramp, as I understand it, isn't so much really about the freeway ramp, as it were. It's about the, that's actually part of the levee. It functions as part of the levee, so they need to make some adjustments on the height of that. So that could impact our plans for the north side of the mall there, the east-west portion of the right-of-way. So we will be coordinating with them on that to make sure that those two projects, mesh.
Yeah, I just didn't want us to build a road and then have to tear the road out when that other work gets done or something.
Yeah, I think.
That's why we'll be coordinating.
Yeah, and also, I think, Travis and I have talked, we're not anticipating even having the planning done until end of December. I think we talked the end of the year, Travis.
Yeah, I mean, I think optimistically, we would hope to have a pretty well-developed plan by the end of the year. But as I don't know if it was mentioned, we're in the process of backfilling an engineering position that was vacated recently. So that's that project. That was a project that was assigned to the previous person, the incumbent in that position. So it's kind of been on hold for a couple of months, but we're going to be getting back to that very soon.
Yeah, we're getting ready for it, but I'd be actually shocked if we got it done next budget year, the road itself. I'd be surprised, but
we have to have money to spend on the engineering, design, and
Yeah.
and some of those pieces, so I doubt seriously we'll spend the entire amount, but.
And I guess I just want to make sure, like, we're not engineering something and then the size of it's going to change or something like that, and then we have to re-engineer it.
That's why the interagency coordination is critical on these kinds of projects, and I really appreciated the NCDD folks reaching out to us to let us know what they had in mind. I don't want to speak for them, but I think they said they were looking about a couple of years out on that project. Yeah. And depending on how things go, we might be kind of, building at the same time or one slightly before the other. Kind of depends on how things pan out. As Eric just said, the design is not going to cost $500,000. However, I think, correct if I'm wrong, Ray, but I think the intent there was to have that money there because if things start moving on the urban renewal development, quickly, all of a sudden, we don't know what's going to happen. We want to be prepped to start moving on construction if we need to.
No, and that'd be great to have a motor put on that mud turtle.
I'm sorry? I didn't follow that.
Urban renewal's moving kind of slow.
Oh, I follow you. Okay, gotcha.
That answers that.
Other questions? Councilor White?
Yeah, I have two quick questions. One is, the big sign for the factory outlet mall, is that encroaching where that road is gonna be placed? Because we were told that by Ray's predecessor, our previous city manager, and that was gonna be a big leverage piece for possibly getting the factory outlet folks to work with us.
The sign exactly, I don't recall, you may or may not remember on the layout, but a big portion of the parking along the north side.
I know that, but we were told the sign was as well.
Which sign are you referring to, Councilor White?
Their main sign, their main big freeway sign says Columbia Gorge Outlet Mall.
Are you talking about the one that's along 257th or?
I think that's the one, yeah.
No, it's right on the corner.
Oh, okay, that one, yeah. I don't anticipate that being a big impediment to what we have planned. We're not talking about expanding this to be a huge roadway. You know, these are pretty modest. We don't have a ton of right of way already. It's not in our right of way, so as long as we're working within our right of way, there shouldn't be a conflict there.
All right. And then my other thought was, would it be smart for us to possibly include out of that 500,000 possible development on the south side of the mall, in case we can get somewhere with that? Because we don't know what the future holds, and I think that's something we should really pursue.
You're referring to the UPRR,
Yeah.
right away. I think Ray spoke to that last meeting. You know, I guess I might defer that to Ray, but I mean, I don't think there's anything that would prevent this appropriation from being used for something like that, but it would also come down to what all are you trying to do, and is there enough money to go around? So while you might be able to do one or the other with that appropriation, you may not be able to do both.
Yeah, I realize money would probably have to be added, but in case something came up and we needed to act on the monies there, so. And you answered my question.
Yeah, and Councilor White, I'm looking through Portland Maps, which does property lines overlaying a Google Earth map, and I told I should use our GIS, but I'm lazy, I use this one because I know it. The sign appears to be completely in the mall's property. There's no leverage there.
That must have been an error then.
Yeah.
All right, I thought it was worth bringing up, thanks.
Here's that.
Other questions from staff?
Okay, well, then we would move forward to motions. So for the Budget Committee to complete one of its tasks, to approve a budget, which would then get published and referred to the City Council after it's published. So staff requests a so-moved motion that the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve a levy for the Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan area for the 24-25 fiscal year in the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Did you get who those were?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
By Mayor Lauer, second by Jordan Wittrin. And before that came up, I wanted to just ask, does anyone have any other questions about the urban renewal budget before we vote on it? Councilor Glantz? No? You're on, all right. Okay.
Ready? Okay. Tandy Staphenson,
Yes.
Chair Lauer,
Yes.
Jean Bent,
Yes.
Director Ritma,
Yes.
Heidi Timberman,
Yes.
Chris Barney,
Yes.
Director One,
Yes.
Paul Wilcox,
Yes.
Director White,
Yes.
Victoria Rizzo,
Yes.
Director Wittrin,
Yes.
and Director Glantz.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the staff requests a so-moved motion that the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve the proposed budget for the 2024-2025 fiscal year in total as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Wittrin, second by Victoria Rizzo, that the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 in total as submitted. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Chair Lauer,
Yes.
Jean Bent,
Yes.
Director Ritma,
Yes.
Heidi Timberman, Chris Barney,
Yes.
Director One,
Yes.
Paul Wilcox,
Yes.
Director White,
Yes.
Victoria Rizzo,
Yes.
Director Wittrin,
Yes.
Director Glantz,
Yes.
Kenny Stafford.
Yes. Okay, that passes.
So on behalf of staff, we'd like to thank the board of directors and the budget committee of the Urban Renewal Agency for your time and attention and support during the process, and for your involvement in helping move the project forward. So with that, Mr. Chair.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. You can go home now. No. Okay, now we will take a 10-minute recess and come back to the Troutdale Budget Committee meeting. So we will, let's do this, come back in at, 7:25. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, this meeting of the Troutdale Budget Committee is back in session. All right, we lost him. I think I lost him. All right, so we will be getting into deliberations here before long. And that'll be time for everybody to ask their final questions and then to work through any line items or adjustments that we want to make, if any, to this budget.
Chair, just for the record, a note that Rich Allen is now with for the minutes.
She's on.
Thank you.
Sarah's on it. She's on it.
This is varsity here.
Was that a shot at Kenda?
No.
You're referring to Kenda as JV?
I wasn't, I was just referring to.
Somebody's gonna have to play that for her later.
She's listening at home.
Okay, wanna go ahead, Eric?
If you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead and do your forecast.
Alrighty, back into the city meeting. And we're recording. Oh, I guess I'm the one that's late, my apologies. General fund projection assumptions, so typical PERS rate increase I've got factored in, and wages increase factored in, healthcare factored in, just formula wise. Assumptions on materials and services growth. Fire and police services, I've plugged in heavy increases so that I'm being cautious and conservative, certainly not what I'm wanting to have occur. Projections on property taxes and so forth. So this is what we looked at Monday night, our ending fund balance, the 5.5. So we get to the chart, that 5.9 there, and those 3 subsequent years, I've projected a 10% increase each year over the previous year on the fire contract, and 10% increase each year over the previous year on the police contract. That's why the numbers look like they do. I'm being my typical cautious and conservative self. Certainly don't expect that that's going to be something that the council is going to agree to, but I don't want to be accused of, being Pollyannish with the numbers and telling you everything's rainbows and unicorns and we have lots and lots of money. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Every time I do one of these projections, it always comes out better, but I'm trying to be straightforward with you about it. So, summary, continue to pursue the goals of the city, and the urban renewal plan is one of our big focuses, of course. Continue to provide stability and continuity, maintain essential services and goals and objectives. So we are at the committee discussion stage. I'm happy to go back and address any questions that there may be.
I guess what I'd like to do at this time would be start with questions from the committee. Any additional questions that you have? Anything that has not been answered?
I
Mr.
have a
Arnold?
question about our ending fund balance, general fund balance. Does the council have a best practice where they would like it to be? I mean, I know you can't factor in everything, but do we shoot for $6 million a year or not? Or can we look backward from that?
Eric, you remember, I just recall many ages ago, there was something like trying to keep $3 million in the ending fund balance. $2 million.
$2 million simply from a budgetary standpoint to ensure there's operating funds between July 1st and November 15th. When property taxes come in, that allows us to have money to pay payroll, all of the other things. So that's sort of the minimum that's needed essentially. We've done it with as little as 1.8 as forecast, but that's always because we knew we had contingency also built in. But your question about what does the council want, that's an entirely different answer than what we need from a budget law standpoint.
So I guess to give you perspective, I was just looking, it was 1.8 back in 2008. We were looking for 1.8, we had 2.6, but that's also when we had appropriations of 13 million too. Does that answer your question? Mr. Mint?
Ray, on that new intergovernmental flood safety benefit, what can the citizens expect as a benefit of that new?
Well, that's probably much better Councilor Rickman to answer since they're involved in that's to kind of help keep running things until the district gets its own income. So that's the benefit they get, the levy needs to keep being maintained.
Yeah, the municipalities will be paying somewhat of a fee. Just be glad you're not Portland or Gresham.
And this is for the levy?
The levy system. So really, if you don't have the levies accredited, you're probably not gonna have Amazon and FedEx and a lot of those things.
Yeah, because I what's the budget for next year for the MCDD to take all the maintenance?
16 mil.
16 million, and we're budgeting to contribute how much?
127.
Yeah.
Right, so where's that money coming from? City of Portland, Multnomah County, City of Gresham are paying the bulk of that cost.
There's two components. There's about 10 million comes from the assessments and 6.2 come from this new flood safety fee that the legislature enacted back in March. And it's apportioned by population. Portland pays just over 5 million of that 6.2. And then Multnomah County, City of Gresham pays about almost 900,000. And then the rest of the East County cities make up the remainder. You know, I think Fairview is like 81,000 and Wood Village is like 34,000 or something. But it's allocated based on population. So, like I say, Portland is paying, more than 5 million of that 6.2. As well they should.
I'd also say, this new district that's being created, which Tammy and I are on the interim board, takes over all the levees along that protect the managed floodplain of the south side of the Columbia River in Multnomah County. And up till now, all those levees were maintained and paid for by the properties that benefited directly from being, below the river level, at least at certain times of the year, and they benefited by having levees built. But that's no longer possible. And I I was a real skeptic of this at the beginning. I'm not pleased with the way it's worked out totally, but I will say that the infrastructure that's built on the floodplain, including FedEx and Amazon and the airport, PDX, Troutdale Airport, those are all of regional significance, statewide significance, really. And since, was it Katrina, and the standards that began being imposed on these individual levy districts were onerous, impossible, really. And it was necessary to form this bigger district. And one of the ways of paying for its operations was this, it's called the privilege tax, by the way, in case you were wondering. They call it, what do they call it, flood district tax or something, flood benefit tax. But it's relatively modest. I think it was like $1.50 to $2, less than $2 per household per month, maybe something like that. And we all benefit to some extent by it. So I got convinced of that tax. I'm not convinced of everything we're doing, but as Tammy well knows. But
If this helps you at all, when I started working on the budget, it was 37 million, now it's 16.
yes, and Troutdale's share of this privilege tax that's being assessed is I think, fair. Given that Portland is paying way more.
Yeah.
And Wood Village, which doesn't even have no part of Wood Village is in the managed floodplain, or behind the levees, still, even their citizens are contributing. Everybody contributes a bit. Everybody within the district. The district, by the way, is all of Multnomah County within the urban growth. So even the west side, which, you could say arguably they don't benefit from those levies exactly, but they benefit from PDX being there. They're contributing. So it's, you know how taxes are. Don't tax me, tax the other guy. But we all have to chip in.
Does that cover your question?
Well, I've never seen it in this formatted, this new thing.
Well,
It's a new thing,
It's brand new.
Yeah.
We never had it before.
brand new.
I just wanted to point out that the majority of the work that needs to be done to the levees is actually for Portland's benefit. But when you do the math, like Councilor Ripma says, yeah, it works out. So I've even, now, I used to be an opponent, but now I'm quiet. You don't hear me saying anything about it.
It is, but it's also like we put a lot of water down the hill into that system.
Mhm.
And that stuff has to be dealt with, and, a pump is $4 million for those things.
Yeah, it's not just Troutdale.
Yeah. They can fill an Olympic swimming pool in like 27 seconds or something, but they are very expensive. Okay. Okay.
I had a couple of questions for Dave and Travis, if I may. Full select status type things. On page 133, they have this huge increase on 3/4 inch meters, like over like $500,000.
Yeah, I'll start and then maybe if Dave wants to add anything, he can. This is part of a long-term project we've been working on to change out all of our meters for more modernized, more accurate, and radio read capable meters. Dave's been working on that year over year for how long a day?
About 7 years.
Yeah, so we were doing about 500 meters a year the last couple of years. We've decided that we need to accelerate that program and finish it off because the primary reason is, well, there's a couple reasons, but One of the big issues that's come up is our meter reading contract. They give us a huge price hike, and there is only one company that does it. So with these meters, we'll be able to read ourselves. We're already reading the ones that are in the ground now, which is about half ourselves to reduce that cost. But now we need to wean ourselves off the meter reader, the guy that drives around on the moped. We need to wean ourselves off them as quickly as possible. So these are meters we were already going to replace over the next 3 to 4 years, I think it was. Yeah, five. We're just accelerating that process because of the cost savings that will accrue from that.
So about what was the cost savings for a year to get rid of the meter readers? About?
$50,000. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
$4,000 a month.
So this will finish all the 3/4 inch ones? And you're
Yes.
having a subcontractor put them in?
Yes, that's the goal, and that's in the 82-21 budget, in the same
Yeah.
budget. Yeah, 82-21 line item, it's $228,000, I believe.
Yeah.
For a contractor to do that. If you think about that in long term, that same contractor, but the contractor doing it for $228,000, a $50,000 meter reading contract over the next 5 years,
Yeah,
it pays for itself.
and then some.
Yep.
Yeah.
And currently, my staff are installing those 500 meters a year, so.
Then eventually
Gives
we
me-
won't need any readers.
Well, we'll still have a replacement schedule. You know, the newer meters have about a 20-year lifespan. So 15 of that, we have free replacement and 5 years prorate.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
On,
Follow-up question, if you don't mind. The price of the meter reading's going up $10,000.
No, the price of meter reading has gone up about $2,000 a month.
In the budget, it's going up 10,000.
Yes, over a year.
And that's taking into account some of these meters will be replaced and they'll be reading less meters.
Yes, they'll be reading 2,000 meters now instead of 4,700.
And last year was 4,700.
Yes.
So last year was 4,700. And this year's 2,000, it's costing more.
Yes, substantially.
Okay.
This was one of the primary driving forces for, like Travis said, for choosing to go with the contractor and purchasing all these meters. By the way, the purchase of that many meters at once also saves the city about 20 grand.
I was gonna say, you get a discount.
Yeah, you do.
Of the 228,000 expense for that, how much of that's done by contractors and how much of that's done by our folks?
All of it.
Is done
It's
by,
done by contractors.
okay.
And then on 153, you got 80,000 for seasonal street staff?
Yes. These seasonal staff are for a new program with our streets division, new chief operator. We actually purchased this last fiscal year a crack seal trailer. So we see a contractor doing part of that work right now, just to get us caught up into our next phase of slurry sealing project. But our staff are also going to go out with a crew. That crew is 5 people, and I only have 2 in-house personnel currently assigned to that. So those seasonal staff will assist with the crack seal crew.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I'll read that up.
And also several other things, right away, weed maintenance, that type of stuff. And just to add to that, similar to the meter readers, our goal is over the next couple of years to wean ourselves off of using contractors for crack sealing. So once we get caught up and into a rhythm, our own crew will be able to take care of that.
Nice, nice. Can you give me the status on the well number 9 design construction status, where you're at on that?
Yeah, the project manager assigned to that is just about to finish up the request for proposals for the designer, for the design firm. So then we'll be going out with a competitive selection process to select a design firm for that.
Nice. I could only hope so many pages. And on 193, you had a reservoir seismic upgrade. You're planning to do that 150,000 on 193.
That remains to be seen if we're actually gonna be able to do that this coming year. We're hoping that we can get some of that work done. The reservoir seismic assessment is just now being finished up. We're expecting the draft report at the end of this month. And that will give us an idea of what we're having them assess different levels of seismic resilience. That'll allow us to make some risk management decisions about what kinds of retrofits we can do to our reservoirs to make them more seismically resilient. And where the cost benefit sort of balances out there, because some of the initial feedback we've gotten from the consultant is if we were going to like the highest level event type resilience, the cost would be really high, like a lot of money. So that's the decisions we're gonna have to make in conjunction with the council and the budget committee as to, in the future, as to what level of resilience do we need, how much risk are we willing to accept versus how much money are we willing to spend to get these reservoirs retrofitted. Or even replaced in the case of one or two reservoirs where it may turn out from this assessment that, really if you're gonna spend that much money, you should just replace the reservoir and build a new one.
Yeah, yeah. How many reservoirs do we have?
4.
Okay, and then,
With plans to build one more in our capital improvement plan.
oh, okay.
Yeah, down the road.
And then I had, on 205, the pump station 3 generator and fencing, the number pump station 4 backup generator, those major projects you got in there, are you planning to get them done this year?
We certainly hope to. I mean, we're always ambitious with our project planning and appropriation. When we plan out our project portfolio for the year, we generally plan for more projects than we think we can probably get to, because we don't know if some of those might be waylaid by external factors, and that gives us the flexibility and the ability to be nimble and switch gears and work on another project if one of them for some reason gets stuck by some outside force, that trips us up. So whether I can't guarantee that we'll do both of those next year, but we certainly will endeavor to.
Yeah, and kind of the reason I like to get updates on something like this, and I haven't recalled doing it in a while, if at all before, is that if we got these big projects and we're not doing them, we're gonna get waylaid by more, and then you're just gonna have a backup, and we're gonna have a disaster.
Well, that's always a challenge. We would like to go out and do every project in our CIP tomorrow, but we only have so much project management resources and so many funds to work with in a given year. So we do as much as we possibly can, but there's resource limitations, and then as I mentioned earlier, sometimes these projects get sidetracked because of external factors that are sort of outside our control.
Right, at least if you got other ones you can go to, that's why I like the funding of them.
Right.
But I like to get the status, at least we know we can take some off the list, because you're gonna get more coming.
Yeah, that's like I said, we always want to try to plan to do a little bit more than we actually can, because we know oftentimes one of the ones we thought we were going to do first ends up getting delayed for some reason.
I got 2 more. That, I know you've started the Dunbar project.
Similar to the Well 9 project, we have a project manager that's just about on the cusp of going out to select a designer for that. Again, request for proposal, competitive selection process, we're trying to design firm to do that.
I got one last one. Oh no, that's it. Thank you guys both very much.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Mr. Barnum?
Just wanted to ask about a few items that I noticed in the book.
Okay.
So I'll start with page 53. I was curious about there's like a heading for COVID-19 relief expenses, and I'm curious about that being in there, and it seems to be a 0 item.
It was related to funds that we had and passed through as part of the ARPA money during the COVID period, and some of it we got direct and some of it we got through the city of Portland. And so that was the line item where we recorded it, and we're not proposing any of it for the coming year, which is why it's 0.
And then on 56, about halfway down the page, I was hoping to find out more about, there's a line item that just says vaccinations when there's a separate one that's another kind of vaccination, and is the city paying for that? Kind of like what's going on there.
I don't have the specific inventory of which one is which, but we do have vaccinations, particularly for folks at the treatment plant that get exposed to some germs, shall we say, that we want to make sure they're protected for. But I don't have any more detail for you.
And then this last one is just more of a curiosity for me, just because I'm still working on learning things. And right next door on page 57, I noticed that there's memberships and dues for the bar associations in both Multnomah and Clackamas County. And I was kind of interested about the Clackamas one since we're in Multnomah.
That was there originally, but we haven't spent that one in years.
There's a little bit listed for it on there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just a carryover.
It's a trade group, it's the Association of Clackamas County Attorneys that you deal with. I mean, our city attorney, Ed, actually, his office was in Clackamas County for years. And so it's a trade association, it's not a membership that you need to have. And I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I stopped submitting that.
Any other questions, sir?
Not at this time, but thank you.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, I'll comment a couple of questions to a couple of other people, I think. Let me make sure the people on Zoom can hear me okay. Can you hear me?
Do you have a microphone
loud.
in front of you? There you go.
Can you hear me okay, Sandy?
Just barely. Sound like it changed when you moved to the microphone.
I'd love to yell.
Maybe hold it up while you talk.
First, I wanted to follow up on Heidi's question about the ending fund balance. I kind of thought that was kind of low myself, so I did some historical research this afternoon. Went back as far as the online records were available, which was through 1819. And what I'm showing is, this is all in millions. 24, 25, 2.5. 23, 24, 2.5. 22, 23, 4.8. 21, 22, 5.4. 2021, 2.2. 19, 20, 3.6, and 1819, 3.0. So I just kind of like to see that balance quite a bit higher. My questions are, I'll start with Travis since he's here. My other question would probably be better answered by Jonah. I see he's online. Question for Travis is, the big ticket items on sewer and storm, the office building and the vacuum truck, about 1.5 million total. And they're split 50-50 between sewer and storm.
Right?
I looked at the two departments' incomes, and storm, their annual income is only like $1.5 million. So that, sharing that cost would take out more than half of their entire annual income. So I kind of question the division of expenses there.
Well, the personnel that utilize that equipment and that occupy that facility are split between sewer and storm. They perform both of those functions. So that's why it was split between the two.
Okay, so you're saying everybody's interchangeable?
More or less in that division, yeah. I mean, they perform both functions. So that the same staff that maintain the sanitary sewer collection system are the exact same staff, the same equipment, the same everything that maintains the stormwater collection system.
Okay, well, I guess my point is that you're drawing down the storm account, proportionally more than the sewer account.
Yeah, that may be the case.
Okay.
Yeah, the part of it is that for years it's been saving because it's been going up. And so when you need a large piece of equipment, it drops down again, and then it starts going back up again. The next several years, if you look back to the fund balance for the storm sewer, it was $1 million in 21, 22, it's grown up to 2.3 million. Now they'll draw it down a little bit, and then it'll go back up again.
Okay. And if I could get Jonah on Zoom, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. My question is about the FTE for parks. I'm seeing on page, I don't know if you have a copy of the budget book. On page 27, I'm seeing, rather than a full FTE for parks, I'm seeing an FTE, half an FTE for parks and a half FTE for facilities. And
yeah.
I have a secondary question. I also see a new position within parks facilities of chief operator. So if you could address those.
Certainly, yes. Similar to what we were just discussing with the stormwater and sewer funds. Parks and facilities is one division of Public Works, and so we often split expenses between the two budgets. And so that is the case with that FTE that you were referring to. As far as the chief operator position, that is essentially that is not a position that is going to be offered publicly. The idea behind the creation of this position is that it creates more of an opportunity for parks and for parks workers specifically to circulate and to develop their careers. Presently, there is something of a gap between parks workers and my position as superintendent, and in the level of exposure to the various tasks that management performs. And so the idea is that this would be a promotion for Parks Worker 3 currently on my staff, not a new position that is offered to the public. So that is the thought behind the chief operator position. I would also point out that chief operator positions exist in the other divisions of Public Works, in Public Works water, as well as at the wastewater treatment plant.
Essentially, all the other public works departments have a second in command outside the union, and this makes parks the same as water, streets, and wastewater.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jonah.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mr. Wilcox, is that it?
It's all for now.
Okay. Counselor White?
Yeah, I had asked a question last night about estimated time for completion of these new parks that we're proposing. The River Trail and the skate park. Because I think there might have been one more.
Well, the Riverfront Trail, boy, we're still doing some negotiating with the Union Pacific Railroad for the contract we have to sign with them to go under the bridge. We're hoping that it's gonna start July, 1st of August, be done hopefully by, we estimated 6 to 8 months. So it's looking like the end of the year or January, February into next year to finish it up. And we just never know what lingering things will finish it up and what weather will do to you. Hopefully we're gonna get started, mid to late summer, so we'll have the fall to do a lot of the moving of, dirt work before the rains come and do some of the landscaping work. In terms of, the other one is the Beaver Creek Canyon Bridge. Right now, we're trying to get the rest of the money from a grant from Metro, $500,000 grant to go with the state grant we already have, plus what's in the general fund. And we're still working on now to try to finalize our budget. I think it's a very, very high budget. I hope it's gonna become less than that. But that's one of those, we haven't even had to look for vendors to how quick we can find somebody to build the bridge. This is gonna be built off-site, trucked in, and then the budget for the bridge includes 2 helicopter rides. Because the bridge will have 3 structures in the canyon, beach end and the middle, and then there'll be 2 sections of bridge that will be helicoptered in the canyon to drop them down into it. So the timeline for that, Travis, do we have any?
I think, assuming that we can get the money together that we need with the grants and everything, and
Yeah.
everything can proceed on the schedule that we would like to do, I would expect that to be next summer, summer of 2025. The reason being that there's parts of it that we can only do during the summer because of limitations on the in-water work. So there's only a certain period in the summer where you can do that under the DSL regs. So it's something that I wouldn't expect to finish until summer 2025.
And then the skate park?
Skate park, we just kicked off the contract with Spawn Ranch. We're getting ready to start the public involvement process. We're cautiously optimistic that we'd be constructing that in the late part of this summer.
Because, I guess, staff was kind of indicating that those were the reasons why we need another park person. And it sounds like they're not even gonna be completed until next year. Just trying to look for any way to save any dollar I can off this budget.
Well, I would say that as we discussed last time, it's not just the new parks. We're short as it is. Even without new parks, we need more people. So we have, that person has work to do tomorrow.
Mhm.
Mr. Allen?
As I read through this thing, I can see the intelligence behind it. I especially appreciate the work that Public Works has done. Now, I do have a question on the skate park, because that's no small sum of money. And I support having a skate park, but what's got my curiosity, and maybe this will come out in public involvement, is where we're talking about putting it, that takes up some of our prime soccer field area that gets used. And it also might make it very difficult to keep kids in class who are going to want to be at the skate park during school hours. I don't know if we're creating a headache for ourselves.
Well, I guess what I could say to that, Councilor Allen, you don't mind me calling you Councilor, uniform Councilor. The whole siting process was worked out over a long period of time already. Now, all those discussions were had. It was all hashed out. That was actually before I was, very much involved with the project. But that's all of those discussions have already occurred, with the exception maybe of you might say the soccer field. That's something we're already considering. Actually prompted me to become a little more knowledgeable about soccer rules and regulations and the size of soccer pitches and what they should be. And that's actually kind of interesting in that there is no standard size for a soccer pitch. I guess this is kind of sort of European sports and the way that they developed. But we are, of course, planning to integrate it with the soccer pitch and keep the soccer pitch in operation and usable. And we have plans for how we can make sure those things don't interfere with each other. It's something we're considering, as well as we don't want soccer balls, for instance, flying into the skate park. Somebody's trying to do an ollie.
I think actually measuring, we're still gonna have a full-size soccer field there. It's not gonna take away, because if you look at the north end of the soccer field, there's a big chunk of area there that's not being used. And if anything, we shift the soccer field maybe 10 feet to the east, closer to Magic Station, and there's plenty of room at the other end too. So we'll still have a full-size soccer field.
Well, there's been some years where they do multiple soccer fields in that area.
For kids?
Yeah, for kids, temporary, they just put it up, do a soccer game, and take it back down. So you might want to consider putting it closer to the play area where you can put a skate park in there and not actually take up real estate used by soccer. That's if the school doesn't get really mad at us.
I would encourage you to come out for the public involvement meetings for the design process and offer those suggestions. To that, I could say that if you look at the way the soccer field's laid out, it's actually very close to the imagination station. There wouldn't be, there's much more space on the end where it's planned now. And one of the reasons that it was cited at that location was because of the high visibility along Cherry Park Road. And that's one thing that we've been told by folks that run skate parks is, one of the main things you want to do is make sure it's someplace visible. You don't want to put it off in a corner or out of the way somewhere. That's when you can have issues with it.
I'm comforted in knowing that we're gonna have more public outreach and it hasn't just, it's not solid in stone.
While we're talking about skate park, I would say, inward, go back to fire and police and trying to prepare for the, 25, 26 budget. And trying to leave ourselves in the best spot possible with the budget we're currently working on. And the discussions I've had with staff when it comes to the skate park and community involvement and I believe the individual that was originally heading this up, there hasn't been a lot of, I'll say, interest that has been sitting on the budget for a number of years after year for a very unique park that is designated for a very small group of individuals, in my opinion. But once again, going back to police and fire, is if we set ourselves up with all these projects that are going on, and then we end up with large contracts that we are going to be facing, and then all these other large capital projects going on that we're already committed to and into, personally, I would like to see the skate park come off of the budget for this year, just to give us a little bit more relief in the fact that as we go into contract season, that's gonna help us with a bigger ending fund balance. There's no reason, it's already been on there this many years, one more year to take a precautionary year of taking it out of the budget.
If I could piggyback on that, I did notice that there was a skate shop located in the art center, and it's no longer in business.
Just because it's always been on the budget, just because we've taken a couple steps down the road, doesn't mean we need to do this whole journey.
Okay, other questions? Oh, there she goes. Counselor Glantz.
I was gonna say, are we in the discussion point now, or are we?
We're questions, and then we're heading into discussion.
I'll wait till,
Or just discussion.
okay, I'll wait till discussion.
Okay. Other questions? Does everybody have their questions answered? Really? Okay, you guys are pretty good.
One other question.
Yes.
So is the Metro Zoo bond gonna be on the ballot in November? Is that when we're gonna see that?
I think it's.
Is that May 21st?
Yeah, it's in May.
Yeah.
And do we know if Portland's still in compression?
Portland's been in compression. Well, not all properties, but quite a few of them, yes.
Isn't the zoo bond one of those, it's not a new tax, it's the old bond levy is dying, and so this is taking its place.
It's taking its place, a
So they-
continuation.
Yes, they keep
At
taking.
$450 million.
Keep
It's
it rolling.
Savings.
It's like 360 million. I don't know how that can be considered savings.
It's 450,
Regardless.
because it's
But
less
it's
than the
less.
previous bond that it's
Slightly.
it's replaced.
Ms. Rizzo?
You said we'd already signed a contract for the skate park.
That's correct. We recently executed a contract with the design build firm, a very nationally respected skate park design build firm.
So if we opted out, we may be penalized on that contract.
We would pay them out for any work completed to date.
So the answer is no, not really, but we do have to pay for whatever work they put in.
Councilor White?
You know, I know with police and fire, there's a chance that we may have a district ourselves. And I'm curious how our compression would work if, let's say, the zoo bond passes and a fire district bond were to pass at the same time. Would that change the amount we would have to pay for the Metro bond? I know that's a tough question, but Eric?
Not really, yeah. I was gonna ask if you take that one.
The terminology you have to be very clear with. General obligation bonds are not subject to compression.
Okay.
The permanent rate and like the operating levy, like what Gresham's been trying to pass, those things are subject to compression. But general obligation bonds are put in a separate category and don't get included in that calculation on the part of the process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and head into discussion points now. That's okay. And I guess we will start with Councilor Glantz. She has her hand up.
Okay, the part we've all been waiting for, right? The actual discussion, all of this. Thanks staff for all their work on the budget. I appreciate your work and appreciate the conservative approach. And I also greatly appreciate the public works approach of maintenance before replacing and all the other efficiencies that give us more bang for our buck. On this is that our priorities have shifted due to the upcoming changes in fire and police costs. While we don't know what those costs will be, we didn't know what the URA expenses would be, and we didn't even have a developer picked at that time, but we still set aside $3 million in contingency, and that was considered prudent and reasonable at the time. I think our primary responsibility as a city to the citizens is to provide basic infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, road maintenance, and after that, it's fire and police. Everything after that, parks, community events, tourism, comes after our basic needs and our responsibilities are met. And some have mentioned before, if we're continuing to build parks and have more events, that necessitates an increase in staff. Maybe instead of looking at it that we want to do all these things and then have the staff follow, we do a few less things. And I'm still, I really pondered the whole Gresham Outlook article on how fire staffing hasn't increased in 20 years. And I feel like we still need to do our part to be able to address some of that and be prepared for upcoming negotiations before we start adding events and other costs. And that said, I trust staff that if we need additional staff, so be it, just as long as we're still adequately funding those essential services and infrastructure and fire and police. And in the budget message, we heard that, and this is a quote from page 12, property taxes cannot sustain government service at the current levels. So why are we increasing our levels? Later on page 22, under the long range financial issues, flat with our current staffing, we're going to incur $168,000 in additional PERS costs, an additional $75,000 in employee health premiums. That's almost $250,000, and we're not even in staffing costs, and we're not even getting any more staff for it. And while joining or creating a fire district would bring in revenue, it still needs to be voter approved. And our argument that we need the money is going to be lacking at best if we put in some fancy new skate park. And I don't mean to look down on the skate park. I would love to have the skate park. I think that would be pretty cool. But I just know that we're in the position to do that right now. Our current contingency is earmarked for the URA. Our ending balance is already earmarked for continuing government services between finance cycles. I just don't see that we have a lot of wiggle room. My proposal would be that we put $2 million into our general fund contingency for police and fire upcoming needs. We can go through, I made lists of things we might be able to cut or reduce. The skate part obviously tops my list. It's a big ticket item, highly visible. And I think that would hurt us if we do need to go to voters and ask for a fire district. And sure, we could wait until next year when we might have to make some significant cuts and be in a world of hurt. I'd rather have that cushion going into these negotiations, because the worst case is we come back this time next year and we have that extra money sitting there to do additional events and parks. But,
Thank you, Councilor Glantz. Anyone else have any comments?
I just have a similar thought process as Sandy, that, with so many our biggest responsibility and our biggest expense is our gonna hit us next year, and we don't know what they are. It makes sense to hold back on whatever we can, whatever makes sense. I love the ideas that save us some money in the long run, but some of these have been on hold for some time. You know, I remember at Beaver Creek Bridge, I think it started out at $200,000, and it just keeps getting more and more and more expensive. I'm like, wonder if we shouldn't get, you know, Forest Service builds bridges all the time on trail, these inmate crews, and they're well done, and they're sturdy bridges, so just at some point you gotta just realize it's too much money. You know, we're knee deep in it now, but just for future thought, maybe we gotta start looking, you know, I just recovered from the new normal and now the Great Reset. And it was even worse than the new normal. Gas has gone up $1 a gallon since St. Patrick's Day. You know, they talk about inflation, but nobody's talking about the shrinkflation side of it. How you're getting less and paying more. And at a recent meeting, we learned that 40% of Troutdale homeowners are mortgage burdened, and even more people that are renting are considered rent burdened. And not everybody's getting these big salary increases. A lot of people that live in our community are on fixed incomes, and they've been here a long time, and they've paid their share. And I guess their only solution is to move. So it's just getting, I see a lot of people struggling. I go to a lot of the recreational events, like the movies in the park, and especially the Christmas one, and you really see who our community is when you go to those things. And it's a lot of people that's probably their Christmas is that movie and movie night, because it's free, something they can afford to go do. So I just feel like a lot of people are getting left behind in this budget.
Mr. Minkoff.
Yes, thank you very much. I was able to complete some of the analysis that I was hoping to have done by Monday night being tax day, so that was a little difficult for me to do that. But my question is, I'm coming up with a deficit financing in almost every one of the funds for the current year. In fact, when I total up all the deficits, all the current deficits from all of the funds and minor surpluses in other funds, I come up with a $12 million deficit overall, meaning we're going to be digging into the beginning balance funds by a total of $12 million. And I'm wondering if this budget is sustainable. So let me give you an example of how I broke that down. If you take the general fund and you simply add up all of the current year resources, do not take the beginning balance into account. And you can see this, I think it's on page 110, or no, it's actually on 39. But the problem is that both sides of the equation are not being presented very clearly. So, at least in my humble opinion, if you look at current resources are 15 million. Yet current requirements, if you back out contingency and unappropriated, you come up with a current requirement of 18 million. So that fund is going to experience a $3 million deficit this year in this budget. You go down to code specialties, and the same thing exists. The current resources are 558,000, where current requirements are $1 million. So you're going to have a $464,000 deficit. And it's deficit almost all the way down. Water is going to experience a $662,000 deficit. Sewer is a $158,000 deficit. All totaling up to $12 million deficit. Next year, I expect our let's see, we start off with it's going to be a $12 million, and I'm just wondering if a $12 million deficit financing is sustainable. It doesn't seem to me that it will be.
Anyone else? Victoria, did you have your hand up? Victoria, did you have your hand up? Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on a couple of the comments mentioned. Sandy and Councilor Glantz and Councilor White and Councilor Wittrin are all correct. We don't know what 2025, 2026 budget will hold. Fire and police are a big ticket item in our budget. And it concerns me as much as it concerns you, not knowing what's coming. But in terms of preparing for those expenses, I think every single year we've done this process, I've said, that's why during the last 6-7 years, we've been trying to grow our ending fund balance, so we'd be ready for things like PERS and the police contract and the fire contract. And so, as I indicated the other night, our ending fund balance has gone from, I think it was $3 million in 2016 to $10.8 million at the end of last year. So, to that end, we have been building a war chest, whatever you want to call it. We've tripled the ending fund balance in the last 8 years for this very reason. Should we maybe pad it some more? I can't say yes or no. I just know we've been doing that for years, and so in anticipation of this, and that's why we've been saving that money. For things like the Beaver Creek Canyon Bridge that Councilor White pointed out, trust me, on my computer is the Federal Forest Service Bridge Building Manual, because that's what I looked at. The difference is it's federal government doing things on federal property, and they can do whatever the heck they want. We can't get away with that, where we're at in this situation. But yeah, I'm thinking about things like that. But the Beaver Creek Canyon Bridge, essentially, we're looking at getting $650,000 of other people's money to build the $800,000 to $900,000 bridge. So we're going to get a great amenity that 2/3 is going to be spent by the government. Just like with the levy, if they don't pass the bond, we don't get over $100 million in federal money. So it's like you kind of double your money by spending this money to get something. So that's kind of the balances that the staff looks at it. If you're looking for general places that you might want to cut, I know it always backs to the, just trust me, and I know that's not necessarily the most comfortable place to be, but I worry about it too. And the general fund capital projects list is like $2 million, 400+ thousand of that is the skate park. Now either you say, I'll say, Ray, we'll leave it in the budget, but you better not spend it so you know you're gonna have the money or how things are going, into next year. Or you cut it. I mean, it's an issue of staff managing the money to make sure that we don't run into a problem or dip into the ending fund balance, or cut things from the budget. It hasn't been there a while, and it doesn't mean it has to stay, but it is. And philosophically, Sandy is 100% right. Our friends to the west never figured this out. There are certain essential government services that you really should pay for. Everything else is really nice, but it's not as essential as others, and that's important to prioritize it that way. But like I said, we've been building up that end balance in anticipation of what may be happening next budget year. With what Kevin talks about, you can't take this budget proposal in isolation. You have to understand the context of what we do budgeting every year. If you go back over the last 10 years and beyond, every single budget, if you do that process, has a deficit. But almost none of those budgets ended up with a deficit because of what we've talked about many times before, is you budget things that even though you don't think you'll spend them, you still have to have it there available in case you need to. We never spend it all. And so that's really important to remember. If you go back to the years, we never actually, again, when I say Monday night, it's very true. We may deficit budget, but we never deficit spend, unless there's a particular reason like we did with the Imagination Station. So that's not a trend thing in terms of, oh, we're deficit spending. As I've said, our ending fund balance has grown from $3 million to almost $11 million in the last 8 years. which shows you that we aren't actually deficit spending, even though the budget indicates there's deficits going on there. The second part of that too, in isolation, you can look at, as I explained earlier, we do build up those siloed funds, those enterprise funds over a period of time, because we will have capital hits occasionally. So you save, just like all of us, you know, we hopefully save up money to buy a car. And when you buy the car, your savings goes down a big chunk. Well, that's kind of what's happening in some of the funds like the sewer fund, where we're gonna be buying that back truck that we only need once every 10 years. I apologize that my red light was not on my microphone. And so we are gonna have those years where you're gonna take a hit in that ending fund balance or in a certain budget, as was pointed out, because we saved up to make that purchase. And so it's okay to go down as long as you don't do that every year, because you'll do it. So I absolutely hear the concerns and the stress. That's why your ending fund balance was so healthy at the end of the last audited year. I can't tell you which direction to go. Actually cut some things from the capital budgets for the general fund. I'm not really concerned about the siloed funds, because they're not the ones susceptible to the police and fire contract. But it gives you a comfort level, you look there, or you give staff good direction. Be careful about where you're spending until we get a better feel where we're going in those contracts. In the general fund capital projects budget, there's a lot of money for ADA. I don't know, did we do anything more this year other than the Columbia Park improvements so far?
We have a project that's ready to go out to bid for sidewalk ramps in the public rights of way.
Okay, all right, so but we still have a bunch we aren't gonna get to this year, and even though we put them all that we're gonna do into next year's budget, we won't get to those either. It just depends on which one we have staffing to be able to manage, and that's been a struggle lately. So, I guess I hear you, I understand that, and you just have to consider, do you wanna make some cuts? And I would suggest the capital budget in the general fund is probably the one that only matters to police and fire contracts, if that's the biggest concern, which is a legitimate concern. Or staff has to be more attention, like we did a couple years ago when COVID first hit. You left in all those vehicles, and I said, I ain't gonna buy one of them until January, until we see what happened with COVID. As we learned, COVID didn't hurt Troutdale at all when it came right down to the financially. So we did manage that really well to make sure we came out of COVID without any hits to our ending fund balance. In fact, it grew. So I hear you all, I understand that, but that's why municipal budgeting is weird.
First, I'd like to say thank you, Councilor Glantz. That was well stated, and I support everything that you had to say. But taking Ray's comments into account and their track record, yes, they've always done a great job of managing to a budget that's comfortable to the city. But I think we need to look at that ending fund balance where we're at. Yes, it's great, but on these capital expenditures, it's gonna be a combination of cutting some of this out of here, reducing our exposure to the expense, and then at the same time, working with staff to where the city is comfortable going into next year. So I think it's gonna be a combination of both. I would be more comfortable getting a few things out of here, once again, to reduce that exposure, so.
Mr. Allen?
So on the Beaver Creek Bridge, with the grants that we're getting, I'm not so sure we want to risk those grants, because it is significant. However, to remember Meecock's statement, sounds like my accountant. And I think his current concerns need to be considered, right? Can we bring up how much money we typically carry over budget year to budget year? Don't we have that? Or did you have a slide?
Yes,
on
we
what
have
we
that.
typically carry over? And we can compare that to how much we're over budgeting, just to get an idea of a track record.
I don't think I have a slide that you're talking about.
I guess I would say this.
We typically carry over a significant amount of money from our previous budget year that we don't spend. Right.
Okay, so like, if I was looking at, starting with 2021, right? We're projected to spend 18% more. Does that make sense? Okay. 2022 was 11% more, 2023 was 11% more, last year was 28% more, this year was 28% more.
Projected to spend, but how much, what percentage of underspend did we actually have?
Significantly less.
Does that put member Meekop's concerns to bed, or does he have a legitimate concern?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is, so like, there's like we have to have it in the budget, but we're not gonna spend all the money, right?
Right. And
But
I do
at the
support
end of
my
the day, we're authorizing that we can spend all but $2,591,000. That's what we're authorizing.
And I do support what Public Works is saying. I do the same thing in engineering. Sometimes I can't go forward on one project, so I'll drop that and pick up another project, and if it's not budgeted, I can't do nothing. So I do understand that. I was just checking if we're still within our historical trend or not. But I appreciate the information.
Councilor Glantz.
Question on the ending fund balance. What would happen if we took 1.6 million out of that and put it into general fund contingency earmarked for police and fire? Would that impact government operations?
Well, there's the budgeting and there's cash flow. And contingency is not earmarked in any way. I mean, it is at the control of the city council. It's not at the control of staff. So the money that's in there has to be approved by a council resolution to be moved from contingency to some sort of object of expense, whether we're moving it to pay for a capital project or a program or something like that. We have the money there because we, want to be prepared in case there's some sort of improvement or some sort of deal that we need to be able to respond to for, whomever the next developer might be at the urban renewal site. But depending on the timing, there may not be anything at all for that in the current cycle. If you take 1.5, out of the unappropriated ending fund balance and move it into contingency, so the contingency is 4.5, that 2,591,000 is going to be 1.5 million less. That's not ideal from a local budget law budgeting standpoint, but from a cash flow standpoint, it's not going to be a problem because the contingency, again, can't be spent without council resolution. And unless you think the council is going to approve spending $4.5 million out of contingency on July 2nd, then that money is going to be there for me to make use of for cash flow till November when taxes come in, which is fundamentally what the purpose of the unappropriated ending fund balance, that's its intent from the local budget law standpoint.
Okay, so actually I was going to comment that would, from my perspective, solve this issue. And if we also removed the skate park, which would bring us to almost 2 million in a general fund available for police and fire, depending upon what we would need in the next budget cycle. It's not that I have anything against the skate park. I truly think it would be cool. I just think it's bad optics if we're going to have to end up looking to voters for some kind of fire district to say, oh, look, here we just spent all this great money, but we really need more money to be able to have police and fire. I think that would hurt us in the long run. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minkoff?
Thank you again. I just wanted to reiterate that the $12 million deficit that I arrive at does not include contingency funds or unappropriated funds, which is supposed to be there, as you mentioned, for cash flow reasons and so on. But my concern is when you say that you budget for it and you have to budget for it, but you never spend it, A, that doesn't seem like an appropriate budgeting technique to me. And B, if you approve a budget, then you're approving the ability to spend that money that you say you'll never spend. So my thought is, well, from a rational standpoint, if you're not going to spend it, then it shouldn't be included in the budget. But if you intend to spend it, I mean, that's what a budget is for. These are items we intend to spend because we have to. So that to me is also just some clarification on how I feel about this.
If I could respond to that one, that's what I explained Monday night. It may seem weird in a business budget or a personal budget. Why do you budget something that you're almost positive you'll never spend? It's because municipal budget law requires you to do that to make sure that if you have to spend it, it's there. Because we may have 15 capital projects in the budget. We know we only have staff to do half of those, 7 or 8 of them. We're just not sure which 7 or 8 will be ready to do next year, but we have to put all 15 in the budget, even though we don't have the staff to administer more than 6 or 7 of them. So that's why you put them in the budget. You know you're going to do 6 or 7, and so that's why you have that leeway, and that's how the municipal budgets work. The other thing, like I said also Monday night, that's why there's $100,000 in there we put in there for the GSA property. Not because I anticipate spending it all. Kevin's right, it's in there, and I don't expect we'll spend any of it. However, part of our agreement with the federal government is we have to show that we're able to, and we have a line item. I mean, I get asked this question occasionally from agencies above us in the food chain, state and federal, going, well, can you send me, that line item in your budget so I know you guys are committed if it happens? Yeah, it's there. Do I know they're gonna get back to me in the next year or two? Probably not. But you have to be able to demonstrate the ability to do something. And the only way we have to do that is through these budget line items. And like I say, consistently, if you go back through the budgets every year and our audited statements every year, comparing it to what the budget projection was, what we were gonna spend, what we actually did, every year it's the same story. We don't spend it all, even though it is budgeted in there. It's just the way we do things to be able to be flexible and complete the projects that we can on the staffing that we have.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, Mr. Allen?
I just want to point out what I'm looking at is how much are we over budgeting? How much are we likely not to actually spend? And kind of feels like there is an imbalance there. That's why I was asking for clarification. But in absence of clarification, I'm just going to have to go off of what I remember reading.
Okay. Mr. Barney?
So Ray, I guess this question's for you. This may have already been kind of addressed. I'm doing my best to pay attention, but it's a lot to follow. So what I'm not understanding is how is it that the budget can show like a 12 million deficit, but there actually isn't one like you said earlier? That doesn't make sense. I would think the budget should reflect the actual plan for what's going to be spent on what and all that.
I haven't added up where the 12 million came from to calculate that out. I just know, as I said, there's always a deficit every single year. Go back last 10 years, you'll see in every budget that this committee approves, it's a deficit budget every single year. But then you look at the audited statements, every single one of those years, there is no deficit. We spent less than we had income. That's, again, it's a reflection of the municipal budget laws and good planning. Like I said, the ADA, another example, we have multiple line items to do ADA projects in the city. 3 or 4 of them. We know we have to have it in there because we have to show under federal ADA law, we have to show that we are making reasonable progress to correct all of our ADA deficiencies in the state. They don't make you just do it all one year. That would just be crazy for every jurisdiction. So we have to, every year we have to show in our budget that we have all these things that we can do to improve the ADA access in this city. However, when we get into the actual year, we don't know which one of those projects we have the staff to manage, usually less than those. We don't know which one of those projects may be better to do than the others, because certain one of these ADA projects may need a certain expertise or a certain product to make it work. We don't get it. Well, we'll switch it over to the other ADA projects in the capital improvement list, so we'll do that one. So we know, because of staffing and because of just historically operating these budgets, that we just won't be able to do all the projects that we list. But sitting here in April, we don't know at this point which ones we will be able to do or not. So we essentially double up on a lot more projects than we should on the capital list, so that we have options. But if we don't double up, we just say, all right, we decided we're gonna do this project next year. Well, something happens and we can't do that project year. Well, then what do my staff do? We can't do another project because we didn't put it in the budget. And that's what happens every single year. And I know I get it. It's hard to comprehend operating that way, because it does seem counterintuitive. Kevin is correct. I mean, for a normal business or a home, you wouldn't necessarily, no homeowner should create a budget that every year they have a deficit. But we do. And we never end with a deficit, though. It's because of the oddities of municipal budgeting. So, but like I say all that, but I understand the concern about, as we're getting into a contract year for fire and police, we should maybe do a little bit more to throw some more into our nest egg. We've developed a great nest egg. We really have. I mean, again, I don't care if you're paying almost $11 million our nest egg is at the end of the last budget year. And no one will say it would hurt to add a little bit more to that. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Mr. Allen?
Sorry, just point of fact.
Yes.
It is true that we never go into a deficit. That is true. Cities aren't allowed to. But there are some years where we spend more than we brought in. Yeah, otherwise, our ending fund balance would always be going up, and we know that's not true. So I think the concern here is whether this is going to be another one of those years where we spend more than we're bringing in. And I think that was the only concern, and whether or not we should be cutting back a bit, knowing that we have some big items coming up.
And that's why I said
do we need to raise our ending fund balance, or at least even it out?
Right, that's why I think I said earlier, that's why in 2017 or 2018, I think, that was a conscious decision, that we probably would dip into the ending fund balance because Imagination Station was an $800,000 hit.
Right.
And that was an important enough project that our eyes wide open, yeah, that year we were gonna spend a little bit more than we took into the general fund, but we knew that going in.
Yeah,
That was the last time we did it.
And granted, Troutdale's run very conservatively. I've been very, very pleased with our track record over the decades.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, yes, Councilor White.
Yeah, Ray, you said, I think there's a disconnect on where I'm coming from. When you said Troutdale didn't get hurt at all with the pandemic, well, it's like, it hurt a lot of people. It hurt a lot of businesses. It hurt our students. It hurt, a lot of people lost their job. And now they're facing these high food prices, price increases on everything, PG up 30%. Like I said earlier, gas has gone up $1 since St. Patrick's Day. And we know probably that Zubon will pass, and there's no getting out of the flood benefit tax, that's coming. And we know police and fire are most likely gonna increase. So I'm trying to look at ways that we can help our citizens, control their own budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
We're coming like Portland, we're looking at a proposed 5-year water, sewer, and storm increase. And you told us that the new meters will be more efficient, more accurate, so that'll be like a hidden increase. But, I mean, it's just getting kind of scary to survive out there. I know I'm feeling it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that the people in our city were not hurt by COVID. I was referring to the budget itself.
Okay.
In terms of our income was very rarely impacted because unlike Metro, the city of Portland, they have a lot of transactional income. Conferences, parking meters, there's just a lot of stuff that they lost during COVID. We didn't have a lot of transactional income that was lost, because if you look from, in 2021, our overall all-city funds, we had a beginning fund balance of 28 million. In 21-22, the second year of COVID, it went up to 33 million. So coming out of COVID, our overall ending fund balances went up a little bit. I will say, the Biden bucks of 3.4 million we got the last 2 years has helped in the general fund.
Well, you did a great job navigating through that, so.
Yeah, we're fine. We were just, our income was not really as impacted. Gas tax a little bit, transient lodging tax a little bit, business tax a little bit, but it wasn't, it was a lot better than a lot of other jurisdictions suffered.
Okay, so I'm just gonna state a few things based on the way this is going. Okay, first off, I believe that we'll never overspend with Eric and Ray at the helm.
Now you're gonna run me over by a bus again.
But
Okay.
Eric and Ray are, I gotta say it, one wayward TriMet bus away from being somewhere else. And I think that it's just something that we have to consider. Because we've all seen this happen where somebody else comes in and the whole culture shifts and spending shifts and all of those things. So we just need to be aware of that. Also too, I'm looking at this and we're talking about the Great Reset, and I'm just gonna hit on a couple. No longer receiving the Amazon money for next year. These additions will act as a temporary counterweight to the general trend of property tax revenues not keeping pace with costs. Property taxes cannot sustain government service at current levels. And, there's other things in here that I think that if we don't somehow address some of this, we're probably not doing our job. Now, as far as the general fund goes, okay, we are on a bit of a downtrend now. In revenue, 1.9 million last year, 1.165 million this year. So that's 3 million over the last 2 years. We've been down. And if you took the Amazon money out of that equation, it'd be almost 4 million. And I think that the great thing is we took the Amazon money, or some of the Amazon money, and we paid down the URA debt. Between Amazon and COVID, we got 8.7 million. So that was a good little kicker for us. Now, when I look at, okay, and then I try to figure out the whole FTE thing, and we do a lot of comparison to 08, 09, so I'll go back to that one. And if we took out the police, we got 55 and 0.55 FTE. And so we've inched up a little bit. Now we're looking at 65.75 FTE. So between that time, right, property tax revenue's gone up roughly 91.3%. Personnel costs have gone up 103.86%. And materials and services have gone up 193.45%, sorry. So what does this mean? I think other things that we have to consider, and the budget committee put me on the police and fire committee, and I do think that's going to be a big hit, no matter what we do. And I think anything that we can do to prepare ourselves for something like that is going to be a benefit to us. So that's part of it. The other thing is we don't have anything built in for the new employee contract. Let's say they got 3%, that's another about 228,000 that we'd be dealing with. We also don't have a utility rate increase in there. So I mean, those are some things that I'm seeing. and there's no easy answer for this, but I have to agree with some things that have been said. I think that depending on what we do, especially if we go out looking for a fire district, some of that may be contingent upon things we do in the next couple of years, as far as optics go. Any questions?
If we want to remove something from the budget, is it a line-by-line motion?
Usually, I think what we should do is we should get consensus on something if it's something that we want to pull.
I'll say something just while we're deliberating and just speak to the skate park. I don't disagree with anything anybody has said so far. And just to be clear, I don't have a dog in the fight. I have zero conflict of interest with regards to whether the skate park goes through or not. I'm a huge proponent of having it. To comment on Councilor Wittrin's comment, that it serves a very small, I'm going to butcher your comment, small demographic of Troutdale. I believe the 2021 city data puts the portion of Troutdale's population under the age of 18 is around 20% of our total population. It's a big group of people that have historically been underrepresented with recreational opportunities out here in Far East County. Yes, there's a skate park in Gresham. People can go to Gresham. Yes, Sandy is building and developing a huge mega skate park and BMX track. They have the opportunity to go there. They have the opportunity to go to Portland. They have the opportunity to go with their family to Bend, to Redmond, where other regional level skate parks are. My point is we don't have something like that here in Troutdale, in Far East County. We don't have an outlet for a portion of our families here in Troutdale that have no other resource or other opportunities for recreation specifically for them. We have recreational opportunities for families all the time in Troutdale. Every month, there's something to do through our recreation program, through our events and regional opportunities. There's things that we invest in heavily for our children. Imagination Station is one of them that we've invested in historically for our children, year after, multiple years. For the tweens, teenagers, and young adults that could benefit from getting outside and exercising, yes, they have the opportunity to do that without a skate park, but having something that they can take ownership for in their own hometown that they can bring their friends and family from out of town and do here in Troutdale, I see as a benefit. I absolutely agree with what Councilor Glantz stated about how, and what Chair Staffordson stated about how, yes, it could look like we could have an optic problem on our hands spending $400 plus, almost $500,000 on a skate park in a time when we're going to ask our citizens, potentially, no decision has been made, to help fund some sort of emergency services district. Yes, I could see how that looks bad, and I get that. But one of the concerns that we've had is that we haven't done anything to prepare for that. One of the answers that came from staff is that we've built up, as Race put it, a war chest of almost $11 million to help with that exact scenario. Could it be worse? Yes. Could it be less? Yes. We don't know. But that's also speaks to the work that our working group is doing to try to help answer those questions, to bring council the information so we can move forward knowledgeably, rationally, and logically. And I want to speak to Mr. Minkoff's comments about deficit budgeting and how municipalities do things here. One thing we didn't touch on a little bit, it got touched on a little bit, but we didn't touch on it collectively as a group, is that we have experts as department heads, department directors, and our staff here at the City of Troutdale. We rely heavily on them as a council to execute what we have as our council goals, the vision for our city, and to manage and spend this budget appropriately so we can answer the questions to our citizens the best we can. We have full faith in the staff that we have here at Troutdale. I will say I have full faith that we have, the staff that we have here at Troutdale. And I have no reason to give up on the amount of faith that I have in the ability of our staff to be responsible for these dollars that we're, yes, approving to be spent. Historically, I don't see the problem that we're having, that we're discussing. But I do understand that the gravity of the decisions coming with regards to the fire and police. So with that being said, if it's the will of the group to remove the skate park, I will be in support of that. Obviously, I would like to see us invest in creating this opportunity, this destination for our young adults here in Troutdale, for the kids that are growing up in the families that we have. But if it's gonna keep a thorn in our side with moving forward towards what we can and can't do with regards to fire and police, then I'm not gonna fight it, and I'm not gonna hold this committee here any longer than it needs to be, so. Just wanted to speak my piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilor Glantz?
Yep, absolutely agree with Mayor Lauer, and I'm not saying that the skate park can't come back at some point. I just am trying to prepare us for what we're going into. And so it may be that, like I said, next year, it turns out, yep, we've got this great war chest. We don't, have any issues. We can go ahead and put the skate park back in, whatever we need to do. But for right now, I don't think that, we can legitimately say, hey, we really need money for police and fire when we're spending it on a skate park. I would love to do it, but I think we need to see what's going to hit us next year first.
Councilor Woodruff?
Once again, yes, I support the skate park in the future, sometime down the road, the exposure now. It's the unknown, being on the working group, it's the unknown that we don't know. Eric talked about, he has put in the projection of a plus 10% increase on fire every year going forward, but yet then we're hearing from Gresham that they may be asking up to 50% increase. So it is a lot of unknown there, and I guess I'm just advocating for the fact of let's protect our city going into next year as best as we can at the moment. So we can do more fun things down the road. Just right now, let's look out for our basic needs and take care of services here in town.
Mayor Lauer?
Could we as a committee entertain a scenario where we keep it in and we send our wishes to council to direct staff not to spend the money in the coming year so we don't have to go through the process of pulling something off and putting it back on? Would that be something that we could recommend to council as a budget committee, keep it in, finish the study with the organization that we've already contracted with an understanding that we're not going to look to spend it until, I don't want to say not look to spend it, because there's no guarantee that if we put it off for a year, we're even going to spend it the following budget year, but just to hold off for this coming budget cycle. Just in the effort of not removing something and then have to go through the process to put it back on, gets lost in the wash.
So you're thinking it would come off and never go back on?
I can see a scenario where I feel it could be easier just to direct staff not to spend it, instead of going through multiple budget meetings to have it not removed, to have it put back on, and then have to go through the subsequent process again.
But like Tanny said, we're only a bus accident away from somebody else, different staff being here, so.
Right, and then I would counter that in saying that it's the council's responsibility to make sure that the staff that gets hired.
No, and with all due respect, I agree with you. It's just, we're like one vote away from having a post office instead of Amazon. at one time, so, you know, it's like,
Ooh, that hurt.
I believe it's a USPS distribution center, wasn't it?
that wasn't going to pay any taxes.
No.
Okay,
No, it was not.
okay, Counselor Glantz?
Yep, I'm in favor of removing it, not because I don't think it wouldn't be able to come back. But again, for optics, if we do have to go in front of voters, we'll be able to say, look, we removed these kind of things from our budget, we cut things, we did things, we need your help too. And if it sits in there, it's kind of like we're there.
Okay, Counselor One?
Yeah, I just, Counselor Glantz, Mayor Lauer, both, and Counselor Wittrin, like I can agree with all of you guys, which is kind of a problem in my brain, but and I feel like right at this point, I don't want to say we're fighting, we are discussing one line item of this entire budget as that's going to be the savior. And I don't feel like in this capital outlay table, like 427,700 is, if we don't spend that, that's not going to make us, I don't feel like that's going to make us, this budget going forward, that much more palatable. Like, I don't understand how we can say we're going to be doing something for so long. I feel like citizens are kind of expecting this to come at some point, and then to say, well, 427,000 of, you know, a $70 million budget is going to save us down the road, and it's going to eliminate our worry about paying our fire and police. And so I just wanted to say how I was, you know, seeing it and feeling, just to get it out there. But I do think that everybody makes great points. I don't want to say I ran to be on the council for a specific reason, but one of them is to provide our citizens with a place to go. And that is citizens from newborn to 100 years old. Hopefully people are older than that, great, but everybody has an opportunity to do something, and the more opportunities we can provide, the more people we'll bring to the city, and people can see what they are getting for their tax money. And anyways, thanks for listening.
I would love to see a newborn and 100-year-old use the skate park. Thank you. That would be amazing.
I guess I would just like to make the comment, Jeffrey, that this is just a starting point, and then Sandy's other comments of putting more money in contingency as well. If we are to put another $1.5 million into contingency and reduce, you know, by the skate park expense, you know, that's heading in that right direction of increasing that war chest in anticipation of. It's just one piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle itself. So.
Okay, Mr. Allen?
How much do you need, sorry, how much do you need to move forward without actually building the park, like the public engagement?
Well, and so the questions that I'd have to ask Jonah and Travis, who's dealt with Spoon Ranch. In some ways, my perspective, I just soon tell Spoon Ranch, give us a bill for what you've done so far. We're just gonna sit on it for a year, we'll call you in a year, as opposed to kind of trickling along and then not knowing. They could do the community outreach, they could do the design, and then we tell them to stop it. I assume their contract's based upon them then building it in terms of their profit margin.
Well, the contract is for the entire, it's a design build contract, right? So it includes everything, from start to finish, complete project. So I don't have a breakdown of what the individual cost would be for, you know, just doing the public involvement. And frankly, I don't think they'd be interested in doing that if they don't have a project to do. If we want to do, it would be more appropriate to do that when you're actually, the whole point of the public involvement is to inform the design process. So you would do that during a design process. That's
What if the public involvement said, Yeah, we don't want it here or.
That
we
process
don't
has already
want
been
it at
conducted
all.
in the past.
Okay.
The public involvement process I'm talking about is to inform the design of the park. The discussion is not intended to be, I'm sorry, thank you. Discussion, at least as we planned it, was not intended to be a discussion about where it's going. That discussion was already had and decided. What we have in the scope of work for that consultant is to facilitate a discussion about the actual design of the skate park. What kind of skate park do people want it to be? What, how, the boundaries of it, the features of it, the look and feel of it, all those kinds of things.
Right.
Yeah, Travis and I were talking in the back of the room, and, there's a couple things, on this budget that the general fund capital improvements, like you've talked about, the skate park, of course, is the large one. But if we're looking through just quickly right now, looking at other things on here, the CCB, the parking lot that you parked in out here, it's garbage, it's graveling out there. If we didn't spend $150,000 next year on it, you'd still be able to park on it, just be more gravelly, you just put it off one more year. So, there's $150,000 of the general fund monies that could be cut also to consider. The parking lot expansion is only $20,000, but at the parks.
That's 100 altogether.
Yeah, it's 100 altogether here, because, in the other line items here. The Beaver Creek Canyon repairs, we could probably not do that, put those off, because we'll just focus on the bridge hopefully next year and not necessarily have to do those repairs, and those could get put off. Another one in here that it bothers me not to do this, but we have $100,000 in here, Imagination Station surface repairs. It bothers me because we have a beautiful Imagination Station park, and a couple spots where they did the surfacing in there, they didn't do a good job of removing organic material, and so there's a couple spots that sag, and we want to go through and really do a proper repair on those. Do we have to? No, but I'd really like to. But if we're talking about a couple things in the general fund to cut, I would say, you've already talked about the skate park, but I would also talk about the CCB parking lot, the Beaver Creek Canyon repairs, and expanding the parking lot at the park shop. So those are some other, and I don't mean to make it sound like it was shallow, but there is a value in saying, hey, we did add some more to the war chest, at least to show that we did do something in preparation, not that we don't ever want to do them. So I appreciate what Councilor Glantz said in that regard. So there's some other things to add to that amount, if you want to look at those also.
Councilor Glantz?
I was just going to say that I'm not meaning to pick on the skate park. I just think it's so visible. If there's other places we can cut and save, that would be great. My purpose in picking out the skate park was an easy way to get us, through tonight pretty quickly and easily, to say we want, close to 2 million additional in contingency, and the skate park would be part of that, just to make this easier and faster, and then leave it to staff to decide what else might be cut to help offset some of that.
And we don't have to do this, but I kind of look at our council. Our council's gonna have to vote on a utility rate increase. Council's gonna have to vote on a employee contract, a new employee contract, and a number of other things, and the council's gonna have to potentially endorse a ballot measure for a fire district. And frankly, I want the budget committee to help them as much as possible and not put them into a hole, and then they've got other things that they've got to add on to this, and it just makes a problem worse than it needs to be, frankly. And I appreciate the war chest. It's just, if I look at the numbers, it says you're gonna spend it. Mr. Barnett?
So this question is more for my understanding, because there's something I'm missing. I'm not picking on the skate park, I'm just going to use that as an example. So say we pass the budget and the skate park is in there. Is the money budgeted for the skate park, does that have to be used for that, or can it still be pulled if an emergency comes up later?
Can be used, excuse me.
Right, we can stop it. If an emergency happens, we can stop it. We just owe the company their work today, whatever it is. We can just cut them off. So that's pretty much about everything in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is appropriations is authorization to spend, not obligation to spend. Now, certainly there are things that we've committed to that we are gonna be obligated to spend, contracts that we've signed, labor agreements, et cetera. But in general, you know, particularly on the capital project side, it's authorization, not necessarily obligation. And a lot of times we don't spend because, just as we talked about, we don't have the staff to manage it. So we can't go forward with that project. We're authorized to, but we just aren't able to execute it, so we're not gonna spend that X hundreds of thousands of dollars on that project.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff too. I mean, when I come away from this and whatever you guys do with the budget, it doesn't stop staff thinking about, all right, what can we kind of go into next year going, well, you know, we're budgeted for it, but let's just put that really low on the priority list, or see what we can do to get something less expensive in that regard, for the very reason what you're talking about, because our jobs are on the line, quite frankly, because if you have to start cutting things, we're all on the table. So we have our own vested interest in doing that. So I could say, honestly, I'm still thinking of it as we're sitting here, even if you approve stuff on this list. I'm not even gonna tell you what I'm thinking about, but about things we could probably slow down, and I'll just say, let's not even touch that for 6 months into the budget year, just to see where we're headed. Again, I hate to say it's about myself too, I'll say about Eric, about trusting Eric to manage the finance as well, to make sure we don't get in those situations where we are struggling, like some cities do. So.
Mr. Allen?
I don't question the city because they've done a very good job historically. But do keep in mind that if an emergency happens, staff won't spend it. They just won't. They're very conservative. But if we spend it and then the emergency happens, that's where we have an issue, and that's something we gotta look out for. So then it's kind of like, well, what's the chance of an emergency? And that's more of a feel, right?
Thank you.
See more hands. Oh, Mr. Bennett?
If I'm taking it right, understanding you right, the design and the construction with the skate park is a combination, the whole deal?
Correct, it's skate parks we found are, that's kind of how they work when you have them built. You know, most of our civil construction projects would be a more traditional approach where you would do a design phase, you would hire a designer that's, you know, sort of professional service.
Bid you for the design.
Get your plans prepared, specs, all that, and then you go out to a bid for a contractor to actually build it. And those are two separate people that you're contracting with. In the case of something like a skate park, that's sort of a bit of a niche industry. So after quite a bit of research on it, what we found was that's how you get skate parks built for the most part, is you go out and you have firms that are design build firms. You hire them to do it, you know, from the beginning to the end. They design it and they build it.
Because it seems to me that if we stopped it and had to pay them for the design work, it's gonna be a substantial charge, because they're expecting you to do the whole thing.
Well, under our contract, we're obligated to pay them for work completed to date. There's no penalty clause, but.
But there's not a breakdown between design and, here's how much of it is design, here's how much of it is.
No, they would have to document that to us, and, you know,
So,
we'd have
and
to
Ray, you
find
said
out
we
what
have to keep something in ADA on the books, so we can show we're doing ADA. Why not take the $250K out of ADA for Imagination Station in Columbia Park? Because you still have other ADA projects.
Yeah, I mean, that'd have to be something, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna look at Travis.
Yeah,
Oversees it.
I think you could do that, you know, the key is we wanna do, obviously we would like to we want to do all of our AD upgrades as quickly as possible, but there's a limit to what's possible, because they're such a huge undertaking. But from a legal perspective, let's say, you want to be showing that you're making some progress.
Right, but I mean, you have multiple.
But we have budgeted in all these different funds, so we could make a little progress here, a little progress there. I think if you were to take some of that out, in 1 or 2 or 3 of the funds, but we still had other intact funds that we were actually going to, execute.
Yeah.
I don't litigate these cases, but I think that would be a pretty good showing of good faith.
Yeah, let's say you take the 250 on the 88 and you lopped off 150. I think safely say we're not gonna get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm
that's the
thinking.
150 right there. Then the 150 for the parking lot's 300. And then a couple other things I
400.
mentioned, you're up to 4 or 5, and then if you get crazy and the skate park too, you're up to $1 million now.
Yeah.
Finally getting into some real money.
I think you could probably do that. Take $1 million out of that and still keep the dog, and still keep the skate park.
Okay, Mr. Allen?
At some point, we should probably do a list of things people are interested in discussing to cut. We discuss it and we vote, cut or not cut, and just go through it. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, do you guys want to come back with a list? You want some direction? You want us to just start going through?
Well, I think the skate park is something you guys should decide. I think you're gonna have to vote on that. I mean, if you say, and the staff is directed to remove another $400,000 from the general fund capital outlay table, so you have a total of $800 and some thousand removed. I think if you just give us that direction, we could do that and let you know what we took out. Just give us a number of how much more than that if you do throw the skate park out. That would be better. It's what I've always told other organizations, tell us what you want. The skate park stands alone, but everything else, tell us that you want us to take 300,000, 400,000 more than that out. Let us figure out where it's gonna come.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to sit down, and I don't wanna waste your time doing that tonight. Just know that I think we could do that.
I like his idea.
I would offer one other comment, which is I'm too old to take up skateboarding at this point. Sadly.
You're never too old,
I more or
Travis.
less have given up snowboarding, which I actually have some skill at. But I would recommend as you're thinking about what things to cut, think about how that reflects what the community wants, right? When you look at all these various options. And you have some great resources you can look at when you're considering that, various planning activities that have been done, master plans, things like that, that reflect what broad public processes have indicated the community thinks are important and what's, what they want you all to do. And if we end up going on to a third meeting, that would be, I guess my advice is to consider some of those resources that are out there. All these processes have been done in various planning venues in the city over the last several years, where they've had community input on these things, and take those into consideration as you prioritize things.
No, and I appreciate that. And like I said before, I think this group is going to be judged on the services that it provides and how well those services are and how much it costs people. And I'll just say, and I know this is the fire thing keeps coming up and it's a ways off, but I look at it, it's like, if we can't do police, fire, sewer, water, things like that, I don't think anything else matters. Just a personal opinion. Councilor Glanz?
I have a question. Why can't we first vote on, or at least read the room, as Randy would say, as to whether or not the skate park, right-hand slip, should come out? And not just say, we want a total of 1.8 million to go into contingency, and then leave it to staff to figure out where some of that comes from, how much of it comes from, the year-end balance, how much of it comes from other projects. I mean, I truly do trust staff that they will make these best decisions. And the reason I'm kind of focusing on the dog park is the price tag and the visibility to the community.
Skate park.
Skate park.
what she said.
Yeah.
We know what she meant.
My bad.
Okay, you want us to give you a list, or you want to come back? What do you want to do?
Well, my thought is you guys just need to decide on the skate park first and then decide, how, like I said, I think we can, I'm just looking at my numbers here. Other than that, I think we could double up the skate park amount, the 427 in there, the general fund, and come up with another 427 in the general fund, to get us up to about $150,000 in cuts in that, and move that money just, Eric, into contingency. I mean,
Probably
because
unappropriated.
they have unappropriated too. I mean, it's kind of
Probably unappropriated.
unappropriated.
What's the difference?
Well, yeah,
You don't get to spend unappropriated, okay?
staff doesn't get to spend either one.
No, I didn't mean, I meant, council.
The money that comes out of the appropriations would automatically roll into the unappropriated ending fund balance. The projected balance that's on the screen, and this, I guess, was something that Councilor Glanz has mentioned a couple of times, of putting more money into contingency. The projected balance of the 5.5 that's on the chart is already the total of the 3 million of contingency and the unappropriated. So if we move money from unappropriated to contingency, we're just moving it between line items, we're not changing the total. If we remove expenses from the capital list, as has been talked about, that would increase that total.
Right.
So, from a budget standpoint, for the record and so forth, what would be preferable for me was that there be a straightforward motion to remove XYZ project from the budget. And then a yes or a no, and then move on to the next item.
Mayor Lau?
Yeah, exactly what Eric said. I agree with that. And then I would just ask that this committee think before suggesting cutting improvements to facilities or projects that we already have. Imagination Station, the improvements that we know we need on a facility that our community and the region appreciates and uses every day, multiple hours a day, hundreds, probably thousands of people, to think twice before cutting budgeted dollars to help improve facilities that we already have and use and love and enjoy. I would look for this committee to look at cutting projects that we don't have, or cutting dollars to projects that we aren't blessed with in our community yet, like the skate park, before we start looking at cutting dollars for things that we need for maintenance and upkeep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Councilor Alex will say, but I think, I don't know, tell me if this works, but, make a decision on the skate park and then direct staff to remove, before presenting to council, another, $400,000, $500,000 from the general fund. I think the budget committee could give us that direction, and then the submitted budget to the council reflects their vote in that regards.
Yeah, it would be, presumably one motion voted yes or no on keeping or removing the skate park. And then there could be a second motion of directing staff to remove another $450,000 of capital expenditures from the general fund. And yes or no. And then you will have amended the budget with two motions. And then the motion that would end up being on the screen would be adopting the budget as presented and amended. And then ultimately that would be what I would have to fix together and get the stuff published, and would ultimately end up coming to the council. But Ray and I would sit down and go through the list with Travis and figure out where the right pieces are, and we make that adjustment so that the numbers balance out to what the budget committee amended the budget to be. If I'm reading the room correctly.
Mr. Allen?
I would agree with Mayor Lauer on the maintenance side of things. If you were to take the play park at Columbia Park, It's a bit shocking. It's not a small little area that is uneven
Okay.
or riddled. So we do have a certain responsibility to maintain what we have. But as far as new stuff, do we add more to our plate when we're not maintaining what we already have?
Okay.
And I would just agree with Mayor Lauer as well as, when I talked earlier about the skate park being a niche, small group of people, but Imagination Station, that is our community, that's our destination point, and that is something I believe we have an obligation to take care of and maintain for all citizens going forward. I think that is a good focus. I'd hate to see that get cut off.
All right. Mayor Lauer?
To move this along a little bit more, would it be appropriate, Chair, to make a motion for removing the skate park?
Just 1 second, I had another question first.
Given the fact that how long we're taking just on the skate park, and I would appreciate staff's help. I think the consensus is that the budget as is isn't gonna pass without some cuts. And I think it'd be appropriate for all of us, I hate to do this, but take a look at the budget on things that we'd be willing to cut, and staff should do the same thing. And then we reconvene and we can vote on each item.
Okay.
Just a thought, because we don't do our best work in the wee hours, I've noticed in the past.
Sometimes.
I think we do the greatest work when it gets later.
Councilor Glanz, before we go to.
At the bare minimum, I think we should at least give an indication to staff of where we are with the skate park. And then from there, whatever, open.
Okay. So, I guess if you want to make a motion on the skate park, that would be on page 92, count number 8350 for 427,700.
So, Chair, I'll make a motion to remove the skate park from the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to remove the skate spot park, $427,700 from the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, let her rip.
Glenn.
What? Oh, sorry, Councilor White.
Here's my thought on it, when we keep adding parks, we're gonna have to add more staff. It's ongoing cost to the citizens. Those are the ones I'm worried about. I'm less worried about the price of the skate park as I am increasing staff and PERS and everything that goes with that.
We'll take this.
So then I hope you have a no vote.
And I also want to indicate that, if we just delay it 1 year, the price is probably going to go up.
Yep.
So and I know there's opposition. Travis, you're saying that that's too late for them to argue because there's a homeowners association that's, I think they just recently found out that they're getting a skate park near their homes, and they came to our last council meeting and they're planning to fight it. Are you saying it's too late for them to fight that?
It's never too late for anybody to fight anything, but what I was saying was that there was a public involvement process previously to determine an appropriate site for the skate park. And that was the site they came up with.
So I guess my question is, if we pull this off the budget, does that mean it's going to be permanently pulled? Or are we just delaying it a year?
It could probably just be added in.
I think that's a yes and a yes.
We're delaying it.
Every year you get a new choice.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor, please? Okay. Sarah, go ahead.
Tammy Stephenson.
Yes.
Mayor Lauer.
No.
What's
to remove?
Yes is remove. No is to leave.
All right.
No.
Jean Benton.
No.
Councilor Ripma.
Yes.
Heidi Timberman.
Yes.
Chris Barney.
Chris, did you understand the motion?
I did.
Okay. Can I get your vote?
If we come back to that.
Can we do that? Okay.
Counselor One,
No.
Paul Wilcox,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Victoria Rizzo,
Yes.
Counselor Wittrin,
Yes.
Rich Allen,
Yes.
Counselor Glantz,
Yes.
and that comes back to Chris Barney.
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
Okay.
Yeah, and all my suggestion on the other one, Chairperson, is that if you come up with the dollar amount that I was talking about, maybe double that amount, we just, the same amount for the skate park. I guess you all can come back and reconvene next week, and by that point, if you give us a dollar amount and staff comes up with a dollar amount, you just kind of rubber stamp it because you'll say yes anyway, or just leave it with you shall do it, and then we'll do it and present it to council when we present the budget. And we'll let you know before then where that came from. But it's up to you if you want to actually approve the specific line items that we reduced or cut, as opposed to just say, here's your dollar amount, staff, go do it, and we do it and tell you what we did. It's up to you.
I'd rather do line item.
Well, we'll do the line item, yes, but do you want to have to want to meet again with staff, bring you a list of, because you'll have to give us direction about how much you want to cut out, and then we'll come back with a list. Then do you want to vote on it one by one again, or just trust staff that we picked what we thought was best? And
I think staff will end up cutting things they probably shouldn't.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, I've kind of told you most of what we're looking to cut, so.
Well, I would favor leaving it to staff and not coming back and trying to do line by line. I just don't think it's a good idea.
I agree with Council President Ritma. And again, sorry, Chair, and again, I would caution this committee from cutting for the sake of cutting. I would caution this committee cutting for the optics of, look, we cut projects. And instead, put our trust in city staff, knowing that they have the best interests of this community at heart.
I guess I would just say, from a committee standpoint, I don't think anyone on here believes that they don't have the best interests at heart. But one thing that the council has that the committee doesn't is they get to see and vote on this again. And what was hard for me was we managed to pass a budget last year by one vote. I just like to have a less contentious, probably more unified position, if that's at all possible. And if I can get that by bringing everybody together, sorry guys, I'll try and do that. Councilor One.
Yeah, I just wanted to probably echo what Mayor Lauer said. I believe that the staff has the best interests of the city at heart. I also believe that they have the best grasp of the overall concept of what's going on in the city to make those decisions on the projects that can be, that can be paused for the moment, and which projects that it'll least affect everybody in the process. So I would suggest that we let staff do that.
Councilor White.
Yeah, of course I want staff's help, I asked for that, but I don't want to circumvent this committee. We have an equal responsibility and right to come up with items on our own. And since we're gonna have to vote on staff's plan in a budget setting, we should be allowed to present our ideas as well.
Okay. Mr. Allen, you had your hand up.
So I'm feeling it. My taxes were huge this last year. Huge, more so than I've ever paid. But most of that money got wasted at other levels of government, not the city. Things that I value, even when my taxes are burdensome, is I value my toilet flushes and my street is nice and, you know, there's a trail to walk and there's a place to take the kids to play. So much of what the city provides is actually good, and I want them to be good stewards of city equipment. Don't necessarily leave it out in the rain, put it under cover, stuff like that. So I don't necessarily want to cut just to cut. I just want to be wise about how we're spending in anticipation of what we got coming up. So I wouldn't just do a dollar value broad spectrum, but if you want staff suggestion, yeah, we should consider it, but.
So you'd like a list of suggestions?
Yes.
Okay, copy that. Councilor Glanz?
Yep, I'm not in favor of just cutting to cut. What I'm trying to accomplish with this is to give us more choices in a year. So where we don't look back in a year and go, oh my God, it ended up being 10 times what we thought it would be. Now we have to make tough decisions. I would rather give us as much cushion as possible. And yes, have staff come back with, you know, here's where we think we can at least wait to give us a little cushion in case we do need it. Like I say, it could be that a year from now we don't need it and everything's fine. But at the same time, I don't think it would be prudent of us to just say, yep, this is exactly what we need, instead of kind of, you know, maybe looking at that list twice and saying, are there places we can hold off to give ourselves a little bit more cushion coming up?
Councilor Rittman?
I can, in my opinion, the staff will be prudent in the cuts they're proposing to us. We tackled the big one, the one they didn't want to be the bad guy, cutting out the skate park. We did that, we've done that. That's the main thing. The other things are fixes or whatever, I am concerned that if we come back and go through a list of things, we'll be here all night, and we won't end up having saved as much money. And so, I reiterate, I would give a target amount for staff to cut and leave it to staff to come up with those cuts. I think that's what I'm hearing from some people, but I'm not absolutely certain, but I'm sure they're gonna be prudent. I'm worried that we wouldn't be as prudent, everybody would.
I don't know, we could create a list and work from there, but frankly, and I'll just speak for myself, I don't care how many nights we're here. It's 73, huh?
I do.
Okay, that's fine. It's $73 million of somebody else's money. It takes how long it takes. That's just my own opinion. It's probably the minority. Yes, Ms. Rizzo.
I'm in agreement. I think we should come back and look at the list. We don't have to go line by line by line. I mean, if most of it we agree with, we can vote that we agree on that. But just like they were gonna take out on the little discussion here, the imagination station improvements, that's for safety too. I mean, if you go over there, it's pretty, and my grandkids go there and things, so I just like to see what they are gonna cut.
All right.
Everybody's done, I just have a couple comments.
I don't see any hands, so go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that, but, and I don't want to discourage any discussion of anything in the budget at all, but we have to be careful about a slippery slope that we go down. I just always heard stories before I became city manager about how long this budget committee argued about a gator in parks and argued about line item stuff. And if you come back to do a line item review, a couple of you are going to say, well, we ought to cut A, B, and C on these 3 pages of capital. And somebody says, no, we should do X, Y, and Z. And then somebody says element and OP, and all of a sudden you're looking at all these different line items and everybody has a different value on what should be cut. And then it's just like, well, why do you have staff then? If you're gonna try to prioritize 3 full pages of 4 pages of line item capital stuff in the general fund or in the fund, and it's like, you do what you want, we'll be here, we'll salute when you're done and be happy and I'll still smile. I just think for your time and effort, the big one was the skate park, that was great. I think whatever staff comes back with a list, I don't know that you have, if you give us the dollar amount, we can't come back with that, you have to give us a dollar amount anyway, because we're not gonna prepare a list unless you tell us how much. But if you tell us how much and we come back with a list and we met your number, are you gonna argue line item by line item to change that, really? As opposed to, we do it, if you don't like it, we'll let you know what we did. I guess you could convene a meeting later on after we give you the list. If you're not happy with it, you could do that. So I just think that's easier and less time consuming and burdensome. If you just give us the number, I think we can handle that.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
I was just going to mention, there's what's important to the city and there's what's important to the community. It's different. It's different perspective coming from a different angle. The two have to agree at some point.
Okay.
I would say, Ray, I think you had everybody kind of on board, but then when you threw out Imagination Station, that kind of torqued, as a community members here, just kind of turned us the other direction.
No, I didn't say it was gonna cut. I'm just saying that you could argue, but that's what I have to sit down and spend time with Travis and Jonah and saying, all right, maybe the imagination surfacing, maybe we reduce it from 100 to 50 and we say 50 there. And we do deal with the worst spots. It's a project, but see, the thing is, right now, sitting here at 9:30, looking at all this stuff, I need to spend time with my staff to make the best, because you're right, Councilor Wittrin. Yeah, I want that place to look good. I want those things, and so I wouldn't suggest cutting it all out of there, ever. But maybe we could do less next year, maybe do part of it the following year. But as we've all said, and all you said along the line is, a lot of this may just have to wait a year to do all of it until we see where we're at, and that's why, like I said, I would be more comfortable. You took the big hit, and you told staff to cut X amount out, and that's a lot more direction, or there's a lot more cutting than you've done in years.
Yeah.
And I appreciate we're heading into a concern next year, but we're gonna get close to a lot of money here if you just give us a number and you know it's there. And if you decide after looking at the list that a majority want to meet again, I guess you could call a meeting at that time, but maybe wait until you've had a chance to look at the list before you decide you want to reconvene, but it's your call.
Yes.
Do we also need to figure out, is the money, are we gonna leave it in unappropriated or are we gonna put it in contingency?
I would recommend unappropriated.
But as a committee, we need to make a decision.
Yeah.
The skate park that you removed, it automatically is in unappropriated at the moment.
Right.
Adjusting contingency is no different than adjusting any other line item that you might choose to adjust.
Okay. So, you want a number? I want to come back.
Sandy's.
Oh, sorry.
I know what I want,
Councilor
but the
Glantz.
committee has to
Yeah.
decide what they want. So that's maybe your next vote.
Yeah, Sandy.
A question, if it's in contingency, council could vote to use it. If it's in unappropriated, then it's touchable, correct?
Correct. Unappropriated is locked up until you get to the next budget cycle, apart from natural disaster, civil unrest, whatever the other exceptions are. So contingency provides flexibility for the council for things that may occur over the next 15 months, because, even though we're here, the budget doesn't start till July 1st, but it runs till the June 30 after.
Then I'd be in favor of contingency. Let's say that 6 months from now, we get that fire report back. We know what our expenses are going to be. We may want to actually go back and spend on some of those things. but it gives us an option at least. You're frowning at me, Tanny.
Just, not at you, just,
Just in general.
yeah, just in general.
A general frown.
Okay. All right. Yes, Councilor White.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with what Rich said, and it's hard for us to pick a number. I think the number should be the total of the things we actually vote on and agree to cut. And our list is gonna be different than staff's, I already know that. And we've never done a budget without the whole committee voting on each item, and it doesn't take very long.
Then let's do it.
The gator is the exception. What page is
Okay.
that on?
We can come up with a list.
Well, voting doesn't take it very long if we just do like one round of comment and then
Yeah.
go.
I agree.
Okay.
One round
But
of
I think we should give staff at least a
I
general
want
direction
staff's
of,
input, too.
but we have to give them a starting point of,
You have
go
to give us a
target,
number or.
go target
We already told you
$450,000.
zero, all right? When we presented you this budget, we told you zero.
Okay.
You can't tell us to go back, find more,
I
just
wanna make
guess at what
sure
it should be.
we
We
have
can't,
our
that's
input.
not, staff can't do that.
But then you could prioritize the line item for us, right? Like,
Yeah, but I need to have a number. I really need to have a target from this committee, or it could really be futile. And then you have to decide how much you want to argue about line item stuff. That's not been something this committee has ever really done, is go through a lot of line items and argue about each one.
Yeah, they have.
Other than back to the bad old days of Jim Jensen as the chair when we used to count the pencils.
Yeah,
I think in the end of the day, it's gonna come up to 5 or 10, from what I've heard so far.
5 or 10.
Line items.
well, it's dollars.
Yeah, it's
5 or
dollars.
10 different line items for every committee member.
right,
So
that's
what,
my
like-
concern.
Councilor Glanz?
I'll throw out a number. I wanted 2 million, but let's ask that it comes as close to 1 million as possible. And I will accept that, you know, it may come back and it's like, we have 800,000 and that's really the best choice.
Can I ask for a clarification from Councilor Glantz? Does that include the 427 of the skate park?
Yes.
So at 1 million, she's looking at 573.
Okay, if you tell us that number, we'll come back with a list.
$573,000?
Is that what you're saying?
Is that what Councilor Glantz is saying?
Yes.
Might as well do it tonight.
Let's do it tonight.
What's that?
They need time to.
No, they're gonna come back with something based on that. Okay. Do we want to vote on that as a motion?
So is that a motion, Sandy?
Sorry, what?
Are you making a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we direct staff to go back and look for another, was it 573,000, if at all possible?
If at all possible, in my opinion, it kind of leaves it open. So I feel like it should be a period after that 573.
No less than.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, friendly amendment, thumbs up.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to direct staff to come back with a list of cuts to the general fund totaling no less than $573,000. Any discussion on the motion? Yes is cut it to 573, no is do not. Well, no is you want something different. Mr. Wilcox, question on the motion.
I'd prefer Sandy's original ask, 2 million. But that's just me.
Yeah, so you'd be a no vote.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor White?
So we're excluding anybody else from cutting something when we reconvene? Is that what we're saying?
I don't think we can exclude somebody from making another motion.
Okay.
This is a direction to staff, so if we're comfortable with that number as a target for staff, then we would vote yes. If we want something different, we would vote no. That's how I understand it.
It's just like tonight, anybody can make a motion to cut anything from any of the 255 pages. And then you guys can have a nice discussion on the one item.
Staff comes up with that, their list, anybody who's concerned comes up with their little list.
Yes. Okay.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Mayor Lauer,
No.
Jean Bent,
Yes.
Counselor Ritma,
Yes.
Heidi Timmerman,
Yes.
Chris Barney,
Come back.
Counselor One,
No.
Paul Wilcox,
No.
Counselor White,
No.
Victoria Rizzo,
Yes.
Counselor Wittrin,
Yes.
Rich Allen,
No.
Counselor Glantz,
Yes.
Penny Stephenson,
No.
and Chris Barney.
No.
That fails 6-7.
Okay. Spin the wheel for a new number, is that what we're doing? It's your meeting.
How many votes do you need to pass?
8.
8, okay, so it didn't pass.
Right, it had
Nope.
6-7.
Yeah, 7 to pass, because there's only 13 people voting.
But
You have to have 8.
always the full committee.
Oh, majority of the list, okay.
Has to be 8.
So in
It
other
goes
words,
both
to
ways.
pass something, you need 8.
Mayor Lauer. does.
Correct. 8 affirmative votes.
And has.
Mr. Allen?
I think we all have some in mind. Mr. Mueller is correct. It may all be different, but we need our cards on the table.
Yep.
I would suggest in another meeting, people come back with the things that they're interested in cutting. And we come back to it.
Is that a motion?
That's just a suggestion. Just throwing it out there.
Anyone else? Okay. Take another shot at the wheel or defer? Okay. Counselor Glantz?
Yeah, I'm in favor of, I think we really do need to give staff some direction and let them come back. There's nothing stopping anyone from, creating their own list. And if things don't matter, we can look at that. But I think we need to let staff take the lead on this.
Okay.
Or my suggestion would be then staff come back with a list of their proposed cuts, along the lines of what we just didn't pass, but, something, I don't know how else to say it, because everybody's gonna have their own ideas.
Right.
We'll be here all night, and we might not end up cutting as much. So, but I would welcome, and I think that's what Sandy was saying, I would welcome staff's suggestions of places we could cut. But in this case, we're not, we didn't mandate that we're gonna adopt it.
Yeah, I think Councilor Urban is correct. If you had passed that last motion, it didn't stop any one of you from coming back at the next meeting and proposing more cuts.
No, that's true.
So none of you were forestalled from doing that or bringing back your own list. So,
Mr. Allen?
Considering other than staff's time, it doesn't really hurt. I'd reconsider my vote.
That still fails at
Yeah, it still
7-7
fails.
tie.
Counselor Glantz?
Yeah, can we hear from the people who voted no, what some of the reasoning was, so we know how to proceed?
Sarah, was it 7 no or 7 yes?
6
7.
yes.
From the prevailing side?
Why did
You-
people, no, was it not enough? Was it too much? Are they opposed to changing anything? What was the reason behind voting no? So, figure out how to move from here.
I'll just speak for myself. I didn't think 573 was going to be enough. That was just my personal opinion. Mr. Minkoff?
Well, I just wanted to let you know, if somebody's changing from no to yes, then it passes. Because you have to subtract from one side and add to the other side. So it's actually kind of a net 2.
No, because for a budget committee vote, you have to have 8 affirmative votes.
Oh, you can't just go with a simple majority?
No, No, it's
Ah.
8.
Got it. Thank you.
Saw another hand up, no? Okay, thought I did, okay. Okay. So I think we're at a good point here, we're going like nowhere.
We could throw out another number.
We could throw out another number, or we could just ask them to come back.
I think Sandy made a good point, though. The 7 or kind of 6 who voted no or yes, whatever on the last one, kind of need to explain what would they take to get a yes out of them? What does it take? Are they concerned about the amount should be 600 instead of 573? It shouldn't be any. I mean, just kind of getting a sense, because we're kind of at a stalemate right now without direction.
Paul said he wanted 2 million, so we know where he is. Why did the rest of you vote no? Please.
I stated,
Oh, you didn't think it was enough either?
correct.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that too. I think there's a disconnect between our staff sometimes and the reality of what our community's facing. And they've been hit with some pretty major hits, and they're struggling. A lot of them are 40% are mortgage burden, and this budget doesn't reflect any of that struggle. That's where I'm coming from.
Counselor One?
Yeah, I'm trying to answer Counselor Glance's question, and I was really thinking hard. I think it was said before that anything we put off is going to cost more next year, the year after, etc. So I think that the items that staff have on the budget are things that need to be accomplished. Maybe the skate park doesn't need to be accomplished, but at some point it was brought up and put on the budget. And I think people, if they pay attention, would have seen that and expected that to be done. And I know it's out in the community because I've had people mention the skate park before. It's not done, and eventually my kid's going to be older and grow out of that, etc. But I have a hard time putting things off when they're going to cost 20 to 30% more over the next 2 to 3 years. And that's just going to cost us more down the road. And so I don't think that saving $1 million is going to save us in terms of our fire and police, and that's not going to make or break us at that point. I just don't believe that that's the case, and that's just me. Maybe I'm the optimist, but I just don't think that that's, if you want to save $10 million and put it aside and not do anything, I mean, I can maybe understand that, but I just don't think $1 million is enough to make me feel comfortable that I don't have to worry about anything next year or the year after. So.
Councilor Rittman.
It's interesting then, Counselor One, you didn't favor the motion because you didn't want to make the additional cuts. The other 3 no's that I'm hearing from didn't favor the motion because they didn't think it was enough cuts. And there ought to be some way to resolve this with the, Counselor One, if I'm reading you right, you're saying you didn't favor additional cuts for good reasons, and I certainly respect that, but the other 3 we heard from so far didn't favor it because it wasn't enough of a cut.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mayor Lau.
Exactly what Councilor Rittman said.
Yes.
I voted no because I voted no. It doesn't matter why I voted no. I voted no. I don't favor any cuts. That's my reasoning. I didn't favor voting for cutting the skate park. I don't favor again, my opinion, making cuts for cuts. I feel like by us coming back with a list, one, we should have already came to the budget committee meetings on Monday and tonight with a list of things that we would have liked to have cut. we've had proper time to go through the budget, pull things out, bring it up for discussion, throw it on the table for cutting. Coming up with a third meeting, I feel like is unnecessary because we've had the time to deliberate on our own and then in 2 meetings as well already. Also, by coming back with a list for cutting, in my opinion, devalues again the professionalism that we have in our city staff right now. They're the experts in their fields, not us. It is our responsibility to do our due diligence with regards to this. And yes, we have the authority to cut projects. We have the authority to cut once instead of needs, like the skate park, absolutely. But by coming back line item by line item, we're discounting the expertise that our staff has acquired over years of their career and coming up to us saying, these are the projects, these are the improvements, these are the maintenance projects that we need to do to continue offering the level of service that our community has come to expect and frankly deserve. So coming back with line item by line item, again, in my opinion, devalues the level of expertise in the staff that we have right now.
I wonder if this would work. It's just a thought. But how about we just leave it and cut out the skate park? Let's not do any more cuts. Would that pass? I wonder. I would favor that.
I would vote yes on that.
Well, let's just leave it at that. The budget, that was the one amendment we made. There might be another couple votes for it, and we might have enough. I don't know.
I don't know.
May I make a motion?
It seems like it's still you can make a motion anytime you want. It seems like it's still a split decision.
Well, we're obviously split very close, but, anyway, all right. I'll move that we make no further cuts. We cut the skate park. Is that a proper motion? Anyway, we're obviously, I don't want to make the final big motion, but I move that we don't make any more cuts and see how, if there's a second and that flies. That we do not task staff with making further cuts, and then we go ahead and adopt it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to not make any additional cuts than the one that we already voted on this evening. Any discussion on the motion? Yes.
So although I agree wholeheartedly with what Councilor Rittman had said, I am open to the idea of what other people might want to cut. But I'm actually happy with the budget, and that's why I voted no last time.
Okay. So a yes vote would mean no more cuts to the budget, and then we would vote on passing the budget. And a no vote would mean that we subsequently make other cuts to this budget. Everybody got that?
This is just a procedural to decide
Right.
whether you're gonna continue to pursue
Right.
items to debate or whether you're done.
Right. Mr. Bennett?
Just a question, the only, what I've gathered, the only, and I agree with it, the only issue is what Sandy brought up with, if it weren't for the fire and for the police issue of expiring, and we don't have any idea what to expect, we wouldn't be cutting
I wouldn't.
at all.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that's probably more of a sensitive reason to be cutting.
I know there's a motion on the floor, but I would like to make a comment if that's possible.
Is it regarding the motion?
No, it was regarding Mayor Lauer's comments. Dave just had his hand up for me.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with the motion?
I think it might affect people's decision on the motion.
Okay, go ahead then.
You know, so basically, we are the oversight committee though, Randy, so, but you're basically saying staff's the expert, we shouldn't question any of their decisions and just rubber stamp the budget and not even have these meetings.
Just for clarification, I never said we should rubber stamp the budget.
Okay.
I said we should trust the expertise of our staff. That's what I said.
Counselor One?
Yeah, I just have a question about the motion, and I'm just clarifying the skate park is already removed. We're not voting on that. We're just voting on moving forward from that point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Victoria Rizzo?
Can the council direct the staff? I mean, some of these projects, like we said, probably won't even start this year, but we have them in the budget. So when we get the contracts, can they then say, we're gonna postpone this for a year?
No.
No.
This committee is appropriating the funds. Okay, that's our job, that's what we're doing. Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Was there another cut, any member?
Point of order.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Right.
So if there's no further discussion, I would like to get through with, one, rereading the motion now, because I feel like we're past it to a point where people might not understand what the motion or what they're voting for. And then we're continuing discussion after that.
Well, this was necessary in order for me to know how to vote on the motion that's on the floor. Did anybody come here tonight with something they wanted to cut? I need to know if anybody did.
Yes.
I don't need to know what it is, I just need to know if they did.
Okay. We have a motion.
And I have a comment on the motion. I just want to tell you that if you pass this motion that says that you want to adopt the budget after the skate park is out, I will tell you, I'm still going to go through the general fund budget, and I'm going to direct staff where we're not going to spend next year at least $573,000. I just want to know that because I appreciate the concern about doing what we can to prepare ourselves as much as we can without losing the flexibility that I think is important to have in this budget because of staff availability. But I think confidently that if you trust us to manage the budget next year, I can make sure that we're not going to be spending at least $573,000 more of those dollars next year, and I'll do it before the budget year starts. Because I think we can do that and not suffer services to your constituents. So I just want you to know, regardless of if the motion passes, we're still going to continue to work at that because I hear the heart of what you guys and gals want to make sure we do. So that's all I want to say on the motion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do you want to reread the motion?
I just had that there would be no further cuts after the cutting of the skate spot.
So nothing else would be cut from the proposed budget? Okay, so that's a yes vote. A no vote would mean you're open to additional cuts.
Yes.
Okay.
Ready?
Call, please.
Jean Bent.
No.
Counselor Ritma.
Yes.
Heidi Timberman.
No.
Chris Barney.
No.
Counselor One.
Yes.
Paul Wilcox.
No.
Counselor White.
No.
Victoria Rizzo.
No.
Counselor Wittrin.
No.
Rich Allen.
No.
Counselor Glantz.
No.
Tanny Stephenson.
No.
Mayor Lauer.
Yes.
Okay. It's okay. Okay. All right. So I think we're coming back.
It's your call. Again, Councilor Ritma has expressed this, he's been around here a long time. Be careful going down this road very far. You could find yourself here for a month of meetings. And then staff's gonna wonder why you haven't. By telling staff to cut budgets, you are doing your job, but with a budget of this size and this amount of money, it's just not feasible to be involved in every single line item. It just isn't. It would kill any committee. So we're here to serve. We will do what we're told. You guys have to decide what you want for meetings.
I'll just say this, okay, to your response. I don't think anybody's planning on spending 4 nights in a row from 6 to 11 to go through the budget line by line. I don't think anybody's planning that.
They may not be planning.
They may not be planning that, and that could be what happened.
That's the.
It very well could be. But if you just look at the budget, it's not pretty. And that's what we're looking at.
I think it's 10 tops and we'll see if we're wrong.
Okay. We will come back with a list. And when do you want to meet? Monday?
The room is reserved for next Monday.
Yeah,
Okay.
Monday's available.
All right.
Same as
Councilor Glantz.
Yep, I have a last-ditch compromise suggestion that hopefully could pull over another, what would it be? 2 votes into the yes column, that we ask staff to come back with at least 573,000 in cuts, and that we direct staff to be as conservative as possible in this next fiscal year. Where we actually put out that, yes, it'd be nice if we could save more, but trust them that beyond that 573, they'll do what's best.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Point of order.
Yeah.
Motion?
Wait a second.
That's basically the same motion that just failed, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is actually with a caveat that they would be conservatively, right, fiscally responsible.
So change it to 600,000.
Fine, amendment approved. Yeah.
What's that?
But I would approve that. I would take the friendly amendment.
You make a friendly amendment?
I heard somebody say move it to 600.
Okay. You want to make that motion? Felt like
Yes.
we did.
Yes.
You do, okay. So there is a motion on the floor.
What is the motion?
I would accept the change too.
The motion is to come back with 600,000 in cuts. Is that right?
Yes. And direction to staff to be as conservative as possible.
Okay.
Next fiscal year.
Come back with a list of cuts to a subsequent meeting. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Well, actually, I accept.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I also endorse the change, so. Anyway, I'm happy with Councilor Whitford doing the second. The first motion was withdrawn.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for staff to come back with 600,000 in cuts to be discussed at a subsequent meeting. Yeah.
Counselor Ritma,
Yes.
Heidi Timberman,
Yes.
Chris Barney,
Come back to it.
Counselor One,
No.
Paul Wilcox,
No.
Counselor White,
No.
Victoria Risden,
Yes.
Counselor Wittrin,
Yes.
Rich Allen,
I think it's gonna be more work, but yeah.
Counselor Glantz,
Yes.
Patty Staffenson,
No.
Mayor Lowell,
Yes.
Jean Bent,
Yes.
Chris Barney.
No.
That made 8. So that passes, yes.
All right.
8.
So you're gonna come back with cuts and.
That's what I was told.
All right.
Okay, hey, we will do what we're told.
That is why I voted yes.
Okay. We will see everybody. What's that?
So,
Okay.
So, what I heard is 6 o'clock Monday evening,
Yes.
back here again.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Motion.
Yeah.
Okay, I make the motion, we adjourn for this evening?
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Wittrin, second by Chris Barney to adjourn for this evening. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. We'll see you all Monday night at 6 p.m.